Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Town of Delafield Board of Supervisor meeting for Tuesday, January 23rd. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Green, if you'll take the roll call, please.
Supervisors Mahoney Ogden,
Present.
Miller,
Present.
Wolfley,
Present.
Michaels,
Present.
Chairman Kranek,
Present.
and also present is Eric Larson, the town attorney, and Tim Barbeau, the town engineer.
The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. Public comments from citizens regarding items on or not on the agenda. The board may not engage in discussion with the citizen making the comments. Individual presentations are limited to 3 minutes, and citizens shall follow the rules set forth in section 2.04(1)(d) of the town code. And I'm going to read that right now. Citizens' comments, public comments from citizens regarding items on or not on the agenda. The board may not engage in discussion with citizens making the comments. During this period of citizens' comments, the following procedures shall apply. Each citizen wishing to address the board will have up to 3 minutes to speak. Presentations shall be directed to topics subject to the town board action related to the town of Delafield. Presentations are not limited to items on the agenda. Comments shall be limited to 30 minutes in total unless otherwise deemed appropriate by the chair or consensus of the town board. The time limit may then be increased in increments of 15 minutes. All comments shall be directed only to members of the town board and not to town staff, the applicant, other residents, or members of the audience. Speakers shall not make comments regarding personalities of the town board, town staff, applicants, or members of the audience. Speakers' comments shall not attempt to be or designed for the purpose of engaging the town board, town staff, applicants, or members of the audience in a debate, conversation, or question and answer session. Speakers are not allowed to yield time to another speaker. Speakers are limited to speaking only once during citizens' comments, and no board member may address the board during citizens' comments. The citizens' comment period is going to start at 6:32 p.m. So if there's anybody that would like to speak, come up and hand your slip to Administrator Green and state your name and address.
Good evening. My name's Judy Fiducci. Scott and I and our family live in Still Meadow subdivision, which is at W291 N 3796 Treeline Court in Pewaukee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I want to thank all of you for your service to the town. For the last 30 years or more, the town of Delafield, every homeowner has been expected to adhere to the principles of wide open spaces and lower density. This all wasn't an accident. What's happening now is the developer and family are asking to be treated differently and more favorably, and this is fundamentally unfair. This is not a situation where the real estate developer is acting altruistically for the benefit of the community. This is about a property owner and developer forcing you to give them special treatment so they can put as many units on this land, and that is for profit, for their profit. It's not for the community. If you look at the aerial photos of the plot and examine what's next to it on the east and west, it in no way matches the neighborhood or the town. There are a few following points I want to make. The town of Delafield should have the prerogative regarding what it should look like and feel like. And that was a decision made many years ago. What is happening now is the Thomas family, or the family property owner, they desire, and the county desire, that should not supersede what the town believes. Newman's work, I want to make this point. There's been a lot of investment. Their work is not lost. That work can be put someplace else. There are many other areas that project could be put. I also want to make a point that the Thomas family has lived in our community for a long time. They've known about the open space planning, but they keep on forcing what should have never taken this much time to look at. We're asking you to be direct with them, to be fair with them, and to say no. You are the elected officials here. You're going to vote. It's not what Waukesha County wants or the developer. There are many other developers that would love to get a hold of that land, but the problem is they won't pay the price that the Thomas family wants. Lastly, why open space? It's not about being rich. The town is made up of a variety of home values and different types of properties. This is all about open space. Why was that ever done? It was to protect the beautiful lakes and lands that we enjoy so much. People outside of our area come here to hike at Lapham Peak. They go for an excursion for golf. They enjoy Pewaukee Lake. There are runners. There are bikers. You're trying to create density that doesn't match. Finally, a point I want you to consider is what you decide tonight opens the door to other people coming forward and saying, I'm not going to follow open space. For instance, I wanted to put in a pool
Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
larger than you would allow me to, and you said no. And I had to abide by that and accept your decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Sue Knutson, N22 W29072, Happy Hollow Road. I live in the neighborhood where I grew up in. I've lived there my entire life. In fact, I moved 30 feet to the property next door to where my parents still live and have lived there for 38 years. I ask you to vote against this proposal as presented because it is too dense and not consistent with other town of Delafield neighbors, nice-sized lots and homes. The Thomas sisters and I went to school together. We went to Zion, which is now Waldorf Prairie. They, along with Rob Thomas, are the generation who has decided to sell the family property in the town of Delafield. I bet this was a hard decision for them to make because they also own other property that is generational. Shar lives in a different municipality in a home that has been in her family for previous generations. Rob lives in the neighborhood where it's being developed on property that has been in the Thomas family for generations. This property is going to get developed. Speaking for myself, it should be developed like neighboring properties. What did the town board do? What did they discuss with the family who developed the farm that is now High Ridge? I think it was the Morrises. What did the town board do when the family who owned the property in Dover Bay wanted it developed? What did the family do that sold their farm to the Arbors? I mention these properties because they're neighboring properties to the Thomas property. What did the town board discuss at that time? Not sure, but by the looks of these attractive neighborhoods, they had the town motto in mind: residential, recreational, and responsible. Vote no. Listen to the neighbors. Zone the property residential with open space and density consistent with other properties in the town. Maintain the lifestyle environment we have been accustomed to and desire. The project, in my opinion, has just become out of hand. The only way to get the money out of the property is to sell it to someone who can make it work on their ledgers, who can make a profit. There's all the necessary permits, tests, surveys, etc. The people who got paid for their services don't care. They don't live here. They don't care how much traffic there'll be. They don't care how it affects our neighborhood, the environment, the lakes, the wells. We are relying on the people we elect to care. I know it's exhausting. I appreciate your time and effort, but I voted for you. There's a gentleman who's been a longtime community member. History on the town board, planning commission, many hours spent in town of Delafield, town board, planning commission, has personal experience developing property. In fact, I think he sold his property to Newman. I voted for you on many occasions. I ask you to vote against the density of this property. There's another gentleman. I voted for you.
Your time's up. Thank you.
I thought you were connected to the property. You live in the neighborhood on Glen Cove, where you grew up. I ask that you vote no. There's another gentleman who I understood when
time's
you
up.
were
Thank you.
elected, this subject was important to you. And I appreciate the two ladies who I anticipate are going to vote against this property. Please vote no.
Next speaker.
I have a few things to show you. As much as I can. Succinct. My name is Celeste Keller. I was divorced and I ended up moving to a subdivision, which was almost exactly like mine in Neshota. So I moved into an area that my kids don't go to. I'm in Arrowhead, so I kind of ended up being here, not even thinking anything about the beautiful cranes, ducks, deer, mallards, everything, all the wild animals that live right next to my property. I'm on a corner, and I'm a single woman, and I can't even tell you what I've experienced since I've moved here in Delafield, town of Delafield. If you want to take a look at this, I want to show people what I brought in. There have been, citizencrime.org, if you look at it, the city of Pewaukee scores a B- for safety. Delafield is one out of 69 people is going to be a victim, or has been a victim, of violent crime or property damage or stealing. According to the little notification up here, Delafield is one of the, there's 81% of all the properties in Delafield, in the city, are less safe. We are one of the, everyone assumes Delafield is this amazing place and it's safe. We have a crime rating of C+. And if you look at violent crimes, on here at the bottom is the letter D. I don't know about any of you, but that's not acceptable for my kids. It's not acceptable for me. I don't want to live in a city that's considered to be a D as far as safety. If you look at Pewaukee, they're at a B-. If you look at their violent crimes, they're also a D. What you're going to do when you say yes to this massive building, there's going to be, 200 condos? Only one person? I'm going to have 400 new neighbors that I've got to contest with. I can't even wait for what's going to happen. So if you look at all the things that have happened around here recently, starting on Mother's Day, 3 o'clock in the morning, we had a neighbor broken into. The crime did not stop. It went for 4 days straight. 7 vehicles were stolen. Started in my neighborhood, Brookstone Circle. Oh, I forgot to say my address. I'm in Brookstone Circle right on the corner, lucky me. Feel very vulnerable. I have a sheriff that we, on a referendum, voted to not have for 40 hours. I don't know, somehow we thought it would be a good idea to have the north and the south side of 94 just randomly patrolled by a sheriff. We don't have a police department. Our firefighters, the things that they see and the things that they had to deal with, we don't even have enough people in Waukesha County. The sheriffs are bolting. They are leaving left and right. We've lost 2 officers that were shot, and not killed, thankfully, that were in Delafield, right? One of them was 25 years old, the 2-year-old was shot in the back of the hip. He is not an officer. The other one is no longer an officer either. They're no longer officers, no longer in law enforcement. This is a crisis, people. This is not a joke. If you see, December 6th, there was a fatal hit and run on Highway 84 and 93. 200 feet off the road, person's dead. Does anyone know that? You wouldn't know unless you looked it up. 12-12-23, high-speed chase from Illinois, we drove through Kenosha, ended up on Orthopedic Associates property on Gulf Road. So then let's go to January 18th. Does anyone know this one? There was a near abduction at the beer depot, which is 2.9 miles from my home. A woman
Your time's up. Thank you.
getting a bottle of wine leaves and gets thrown to the ground and abducted. Any more?
Your
crime?
time's up. Thank
What
you.
you're going to do is irreversible. The damage you're going to do, the crime you're going to bring into our community is irreversible. It cannot be undone. Once we invite these criminals into our city, they are not going to go away. The DNR, the lakes, with the damage we do to the pollution to our lakes, that's not going to be reversible. I feel very unsafe. We had a rollover, 4 kids thrown out of the water.
I understand. Your time's up. Thank you.
severed arm on the side of the road. I drive past it every day. It's marked every day. I see these pink markings every single day. These photos are photos that I took. These are me taking photographs.
Understand.
The SWAT team. And here, this is what I wanted to really point out to you real quick. So here, this is where we all are. This is City Hall. This is when the SWAT team realized that the guy who shot the 2 officers was right behind Home Depot. So he was right there. So if you all see, you are here. This is where the crime took place.
Understand. Your time's up. Thank you.
We also found at Orthopedic Associates a dead body right off the back 9 of Western Lakes. Then we have, you know, just random stuff. Dead woman. And then if you look, how many people have been shot and killed in this area? How many people have been victims of rollovers? How many people are going to be victims of the crime? We already have violent crime.
Understand. Your time is up. Thank you.
Please,
Thank you.
and plead with you to vote no to my 400 potential 500 new neighbors that are going to be put right next door to me. The rating in the only rating that's an A+ in this area that's safe, if you look at the map, is right where all of the properties will be built. This
All
is
right.
it.
Thank
A+,
you.
That's it.
That's enough. Thank you. That's enough. Thank you.
And that's enough with what you're doing to this community. You're going to destroy
That's
it,
fine.
and it'll be irreversible. It's like the demon is working inside of you. God will
Next speaker,
God
please.
do the right thing.
Good evening. My name is George Irwin. I represent the Thomas family. I have been here for 5 years. I appreciate the patience that you have. The Thomas family, despite the allegations to the contrary, are not trying to maximize the profit. They want to do the right thing. That's why they spent 5 years on this process. Over 2 years ago, in this 5-year process, this town board enacted an ordinance and a land use plan. And that ordinance, which was the Planned Development District Number 1, created significant controls and restrictions on this property. It was so restrictive that the town attorney himself required language added to the ordinance requiring the Thomas family to sign the ordinance, consenting to the ordinance, because numerous property owners were now required to have these impositions on their property. Yes, they are being treated differently. The restrictions that have been placed on their property are unbelievable compared to anybody else sitting in this room. All of those requirements were to develop a master plan that adopted an open space requirements that far exceeded the underlying zoning. This project has more than 50% open space, more than 50%. The density has come down significantly. The developer is not proposing anything that even is within the parameters of the density that was approved by the ordinance. The town sent the controls. The town imposed these requirements. And the reasonable expectation of the property owner, when these conditions are imposed, is that if they fulfill those conditions, they should be able to move forward with the development. The time is now to do that, because this developer has met every single requirement. When we heard about wells, we were worried about the wells. We found out that the well study clearly indicates that the drawdown of this property at this density is less than the adjoining property. We found out that the infiltration is at 94% rather than the county standard of 90%. All of it works. All of the misdirection about open space and density is simply a fabrication. We have 150 acres, and those 150 acres have over 75 acres of open space. So I would urge you to follow your own controls, the controls that you imposed on this property owner. We followed those rules. It's time for everybody else to. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
I'm Denise Reese. I'm at North 18 West 29054 Gulf Ridge South. And tonight I will be reading from a letter dated January 23rd, 2024, addressed to Dan Green from Thomas E. Kep, manager of Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District. And then I'll ask you to enter that into the record, please, Dan. On page 2 of this letter, he says, dewatering and drying out the clay soils will cause shrinkage and subsidence. Basement walls will crack, and dewatering is only a partial fix. In addition, the basements will most likely need radon mitigation systems installed. The better option is to require the construction of homes with larger garages and no basements. The WDNR well driller viewer indicates the wells in High Ridge and in Gulf Hills needed to be deep to achieve the necessary flows for reasonable use. So those are wells that already exist. So what do we do about that? Shallow wells will also create a cone of depression in the shallow, unconfined aquifer, which will directly affect the wetlands and surface waters. On page 3 of the letter, the conclusion. The issues of concern listed above are important to address and solutions identified prior to rezoning the site. Once the property is rezoned, the developer can say they followed all the ordinances, leaving the town of Delafield, Lake Pewaukee Sanitary District, and the new homeowners left to deal with costly, ongoing issues for years to come. It obviously doesn't fit. We need some work on this, and I ask you to vote no this evening. Thank you.
Jim Frett, N19 W29056, Gulf Ridge North. I brought 4 slides. I'll do it old school. You won't be able to see it, but I'm passing it for the record here too. Just some of the things already been said. Thank you for the time. Sorry to start with that, please. I agree with the comments that have been made to vote against this. I'm going to keep it super high level. Most of these points have already been made. A map of Lake Country in the town of Delafield where we sit here. What a fantastic area it is, and this is a town, not a city. It's too bad I didn't want to take the time to put it on the screen or ask Dan if I could, but I overlaid, instead of having the surrounding neighborhoods grayed out so you can't see them, I overlaid it with the current plan, so you can look at the difference in the size of the lots. And you can't see that from back there, but it's significant. City-sized lots in the town of Delafield. Double the density of the surrounding neighborhoods, triple the density of the town average the last 50 years of developments. Have some data of all the developments in the last 30 years. And again, pretty straightforward as far as what the numbers show. I took again, you can't see it very well, but this is a bubble chart, okay? Bubble chart is on the x-axis is years over time. The y-axis is density in units per acre. The concept's pretty straightforward. If you look, the bubbles are the size of the development. So the red bubble is what we're talking about here today. That's 212 units. If you look at the average over the 50 years, we're at 0.483. This development is at 1.404. I think that's enough. I just kind of wanted to show some graphics of what this looks like, and I appreciate your time and ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Timer. Oops, I got the wrong timer. I'm going to count on you. Kathy Gudenkunst, North 20 West 29668, East Glen Cove. We're all tired. I look up here and I see tired faces. But let me assure you that I have been here, along with a few other people, from the very, very beginning. I was here on February 2020 when the former town chairman presented an ordinance that would have allowed for 47-foot-tall light industrial properties along Glen Cove Road. And I marked up that ordinance, and I handed it out at the town board meeting. And Mr. Troy said out loud, "Oh my God, she's right." And that's how Waukesha County got involved. Because I asked Ron to bring Jason into the program because we needed help. This property is going to be developed. I am not my backyard. I represent developers week in and week out. I get it. But you guys have one chance and one chance only to get this right. And the mapping that Mr. Fred handed out speaks volumes. There are 3 subdivisions that adjoin this site. One is Dover Bay, which John Spheres developed many, many years ago. Dover Bay has 22 lots on 117 acres, 0.19 in density. There was a Plan Commission member that sat here at a meeting in the last year and said, "Where's Dover Bay?" Honest to Pete, the woman didn't know where Dover Bay was. There was next High Ridge, developed by Mr. Seatman. That has 52 lots on 78 acres and density of 0.67. High Point, which is the subdivision when you drive on Glen Cove, the one immediately to the left on the horseshoe. That has 0.84 acres of density. This development is 1.4. There isn't another site in the town of Delafield that mirror images this site. There is not another site between the east and west end of Waukesha County in a town that matches this residential density. We heard at one of the meetings, well, this is for first-time homeowners. Let's look at the cost projections in the Newman development. By the way, I know Matt Newman. I like Matt Newman. I'm hoping we're still going to be friends.
Hold on, what are you going to say?
I don't know, man. I won't talk about your kids. The lowest price package in the Newman development would be $500,000 to $550,000. That's a lot of money. Matt builds a nice subdivision. If they sell 175 lots on average at $125,000 a lot, that's $21,875. $21,875,000. That's a lot of money. Last but not least, we've got LPSD, who just recently got brought into the conversation, unfortunately. LPSD sought the opinion of Collier Consulting. They did a report on February 21st, 2023. It was referenced by our town engineer but never presented until recently. I would ask the town board to read the summary and recommendations. This is a third-party evaluator. What did they say? Mandate the I can't even say this right, hydrological analysis of the springs and the flow. Mandate wells constructed below, and I'm not even going to try to say this word, a shale.
Thank you.
Guys, you got one chance. We can't fix Pewaukee Lake. We can't do this again. You have had all these people here since 2019. Please do it right. Vote no and ask Mr. Newman to come back with less density. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Janzer. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I'm a resident of the town of Delafield for over 30 years at West 307 North 1677 Shadowwood Point. Point of order, you indicated this was a citizen comment. Mr. Irwin's not a citizen of Delafield, and I don't recall having any opportunity for the Developers Council to speak. So I'm a little disappointed you haven't followed your own citizen comment period, since he is not a citizen of town of Delafield. More the most important point here is this. I've been a resident here for 30 years. I don't live next door. I'm not in a my backyard person, and I represent real estate developers. There's a time and a place for different developments. This is not the place for this development. It's far too intense. You can look at the surrounding areas, unlike what Mr. Irwin said. He said anybody in this room could develop something more liberally. That's just not true. Look at the developments and the restrictions you've put on them. I've represented people in front of this body before you and put much more restrictions on the people I've represented, including people in a single-family home they were building had to put up a $25,000 letter of credit to replace trees on a single-acre lot. That's not the town of Delafield that we're talking about here. I have no problem with the developers. They're doing their job. They're here to develop a property. It's your job to protect the citizens. I've talked to many of you, and perhaps the most distressing thing is I hear comments like, we don't have a choice. Don't have a choice? Seriously. So, or comments like, well, what are we going to do? I'm getting tired. Those aren't reasons. Nobody yet, from day one, 3 years ago, has articulated why we need this in the town of Delafield. Never have heard a good reason. I've heard issues like, well, our taxes will go down. They're not going to go down. We got the lowest taxes of anywhere around. Other than that, I've heard no reason. I've never heard anybody articulate, and I've talked to Plan Commission members and town board members, and have not heard a good reason articulated other than, we really don't have a choice. What are we going to do? I don't understand that at all. And the last thing, from a more legal standpoint, this is a classic example of spot zoning. Look it up, talk to your counsel. You're taking one property and zoning it different than anything in the surrounding areas. And it's classic, you can't do that. In fact, this ordinance was even created specifically perhaps for this property, which is a classic example of this. And you have not allowed this anywhere around there in any of the subdivisions we talked about. And the last thing I will say is on the studies themselves, turning to that, I read them all. I came to the Plan Commission meeting. There were very good issues raised about those, and I'll wrap up quickly. I was very distressed to hear very little critical thinking at that Plan Commission meeting. One Plan Commission member made some questions, they went unanswered. And then you took a vote for approval without any discussion or any response as to how you're going to respond to those answers. So I thank you for the opportunity to talk. I care about this community. That's why I'm here. I have no skin in this game. But and the last thing I'll say, there have been so many residents here to talk to you and oppose this for 4 years, and I've not heard a single person that's not tied to the farm or the developer that's in favor of it. So thank you for the opportunity.
That concludes the public comment period. The 30 minutes is up, so we're closing the, we're closing the, I'm going to close the public comment period. I don't believe the ordinance says that.
How many more people do we have? How many more people do we have that would like to speak?
Maybe a second?
One more person.
Oh, I think there's a second, maybe, but.
I'll allow one more person to speak.
Lori Melius, N18, W29926 Crooked Creek Road. I too agree with the person. I understand it's going to be developed. I think Newman can do good jobs. I don't have a problem with some of the design or anything, but I do have a problem with the 8 lots. They're going through High Ridge. Now, I don't know if you're aware of the boundaries. There is 25 feet of the trees there, and I don't like it going through our subdivision. We didn't want to see any of your development. We were like, oh, okay, we're not going to see it. It's not going to be there. All of a sudden, we're going to have that going through only in and out in our subdivision. I need to know, have you talked to the president of our association on how you plan to develop that area and make it blend in with ours? Why can't you make another road? I heard that there's problems with drainage, everything else, or whatever. But did you really think that we want to have that when we don't even want this, but we understand we're going to probably have to accept something? We don't want it going through our subdivision. There's a lot of people who feel that way. And I hope you do talk to the president on that. Will be me. But anyways, just wanted to let you know that's our feeling, and that's what a lot of the people in High Ridge are thinking on that. We're not really thrilled with that you're coming through our subdivision to use our road for your 8 mega mansions that probably will be built. So that's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The public comment period is now closed, so all the discussion will happen up here at the table. Next item on the agenda would be approval of the minutes from the January 9th, 2024 Town Board.
Motion to approve the minutes from January 9th, 2024.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next item, actions on vouchers submitted for payment, accounts payable and payroll. There are no budget sub-accounts or actions to amend the budget.
I motion to approve payments of checks number 67241 through 67249 and checks 67253 to 67292 in the amount of $9,497,233.72.
A second.
Is there a motion for payroll too?
Amend the motion to include payroll dated January 19th in the amount of $20,350.77.
A second.
Motion is second to approve checks and payroll. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, for communications, winter storm update. I'd like to ask, is Deputy Hoppy still here? Okay, I'm going to invite Deputy Chief Vermilia to step up and kind of give an update of what happened with the winter storm a couple weeks ago and what happened specifically with this building.
Sure. Jamie Vermilia, I'm one of the deputy chiefs with Lake Country Fire and Rescue. I was trying to think when this all started. I don't have notes. Or Mark, do you have notes written down? Okay. So basically, everyone knows about the weather that came through the area last weekend, and sometime around, I believe, 11:30 or noon on Friday, We Energy's service was out in the area here. We believe that we lost all three phases of the building. The generator that's outside started up automatically as it's supposed to. We flipped over, and that gave us power throughout most of the building for most of our critical systems. If you've ever been in the building when the generator is running the building and we're out of utility power, we basically have emergency lighting throughout the building. We have power for critical systems upstairs, IT systems, garage doors, things like that. But then everything else is basically dark. The generator is not big enough, it's not sized, was never installed or sized to run the whole building. So we ran that way through the night. We ran a total of, I think, 30 or so calls. Friday night, we had to call in some extra staffing, had some critical calls that happened in the northern end of the district, and everything was perfectly normal. We ran through Saturday, and everything was normal. We ran a handful of calls, but very early Sunday morning, the generator failed. So I awoke to an email that the UPSs in our IT room had died, and so I got dressed, came down here. I arrived around 4:45, and everything was dark on the hill. And so at that time, it was determined that the generator had suffered a failure. There was some time involved for us to get access to the generator just because of the snowpack around it. But we basically made contact with the crew, had to get that crew to wake up early, get the fire truck out of the bay, and they actually were called for service as they were raising the door with the emergency bypass. So that was good that they were up to do that. And basically immediately started just trying to triage what was all going on. So through that investigation, we ended up contacting the service contract provider on the generator. They started service in motion, basically to get us in contact with a service manager. We actually were called to a structure fire, and that was during that structure fire that we got the first response back from the generator company. Throughout the course then of the rest of that day, we managed to get an electrician on site, as well as the generator service provider, and arranged for a rental generator to be brought on site because the generator was deemed to be irreparable. They had parts that they're still waiting to get access to at this point. We had a local electrician come in and basically wire up that generator that's out in the parking lot now to bypass the stationary generator, and that is the condition that we're running on right now. So We Energy's power was restored midday on Sunday while we were in the process of getting that generator set back up. It was interesting. Sometime, I don't have exact timing, but We Energy's had restored 2 of the 3 phases, and so there was a period of time where we were kind of in a I don't know, just a halfway state, basically, where half the building was trying to be on generator, but the generator was not running. But some loads were being served by We Energy, so we could wash dishes and we could wash clothes, but we couldn't open garage doors, and the IT systems were down. So the way that system is built, it's not meant to be interacted with by someone to go and manually say, hey, switch it back to the utility, even though half of the utility power is available. So we kind of had to live in that state until we got that backup generator back online, and then when We Energies finally restored power, we were back to full operation. So once power was restored, we did have a few systems that needed to be recovered. Our access control system, basically the server that runs that software died. And so there was a fair amount of effort that went in Sunday to try to find some replacement hardware for that. We were able to procure that on the secondhand market, get that server back up and running through Sunday and Monday. That system came back online around 5 o'clock, I believe, on Monday night, and then we were able to bring crews back to the station. So the fire crews from Station 31 here upstairs were housed in the city of Delafield overnight for one night, and then they were able to come back that following day. So I think that's basically the summary rundown. But
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize the work that you and Assistant Chief Hoppy did, and just also want to, recognize that this station was out of commission for about 37 hours during that storm. So just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board, and also wanted to alert the board also that our highway crews, which do a phenomenal job, put in over 70 hours of work that week also. So, and they're still working with the weather today. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention and give them an update. So thank you for your service, and
Yep,
thank
very
you for the
welcome.
update. The next item is just an update on what's happening with Lake Country Fire and Rescue and the other partner communities. The city of Delafield decided that they're not going to be going to referendum to fix their fire fee, to add additional funding. So it appears at this time that we're going to be stuck with CPI plus 2% for at least this year. So just wanted to let the board know that update. And then the other update is the Towns Association. Tomorrow night is their district meeting in the town of Merton, or the county unit meeting in the town of Merton. The district meetings are happening on February 2nd in Juneau and February 3rd in Whitewater. And then mark your calendars for the annual convention in Stevens Point, October 6th and through October 8th. Next item, unfinished business. There is none. New business, discussion of possible action on the following recommendations from the Plan Commission. Kenneth and Hildegard Becker, W298N521 Kingsway. Read the consideration of possible action on a request to approve a certified survey map to combine two adjacent parcels into one parcel, location at W298N521 Kingsway, tax keys number DALT 823-013 and DALT 0823-998-009. Mr. Barbeau?
All right, it's a pretty simple certified survey map. They own two adjacent properties. The map that you have in front of you shows that the pool, the line for that is for the two properties went through the pool. They are looking at adding an accessory building, and they can't do that on the separate lot. They had to combine the lots in order to put the accessory building. I think it's something associated with the pool, like a pool house or something like that. The certified survey map was reviewed, and they had to make technical changes. Those changes were made. There was an additional one that has been made since that time, and that's north of the lot that's being combined. There was a notation for Lot 4, Stonehenge, by the owners was Christopher and Kelly Rebholz. That is actually was changed to Lot 6, Stonehenge, and William and Maureen Brewster live there. So technical change for that, the surveyor has made that, so I'm recommending approval, as well as the Plan Commission did, with the revision date of 1/23/24.
I know we changed the name from Rebholz to Brewster, and then the applicant came in, and she also said that the address was wrong. When she first came
That
up,
was
did we
changed.
correct that?
That was changed previously, before this one, the one today came in.
So we fixed everything we had to fix.
That's correct.
Is what you're saying.
This will go to the city of Delafield for their extraterritorial plat review, and then once that's approved, they can then record it.
Motion to approve the certified survey map to combine the two adjacent parcels into one.
Second.
Dated 1/23/2024. Add that to your motion.
Amend the motion to include the dated 1/23/2024.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the certified survey map dated 1/23/2024. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item, Amy Thomas et al., reconsideration and possible action on the adoption of ordinance 2024-01, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the town of Delafield from A1 Agricultural District to PDD Number 1 Planned Development District Number 1 on the Thomas family properties located north of Gulf Road, west of Elmhurst Road, south of Lake Country Bicycle and Pedestrian Trail, and the High Ridge East Addition Number 1, subdivision east of Glen Cove Road that are in the town of Delafield zoning jurisdiction. Mr. Barbeau.
All right, up on the screen, I have the map of the property. Those areas in the gray where the farmland is.
No. Right?
What? Why not? Whoop. I know, it didn't go. Come on.
There you go, you got it.
Go.
Did it work? I just got to do that, okay. Something's not working. So all right, so the property is being rezoned from A1 to PDD number 1 for those areas that are outside of what's the purple line, which is the county shoreline zoning area to the north. The wetland floodplain area is in the aqua color. That is not going to change, and that is defined by an actual wetland delineation, those boundaries, wherever they're at. This is a depiction of where approximately that they're at, but all other lands would be zoned to that, to the PDD number 1. Yeah, go. The requested zoning amendment is in conformance with the land use plan. The PDD number 1 ordinance requires that a general development plan be reviewed and approved, conditionally approved or denied as part of the rezoning action. And then I listed there all the GDP documents that that are associated with that were in the actual code. Looking to make sure I got the right. Sorry, it's not working as well as we want. Why isn't it going? Practical difficulties here. Oh, from the beginning? There we go, okay. And so these list the plans that are associated with the required submittals. There are other code requirements in that ordinance, in the PDD ordinance, that were reviewed as part of the development, and the development would meet those codes. Things like lot size, frontage, things like that were checked just to make sure. There will be other requirements when a building permit would come in for the house, things like height of house, offsets from the sides and the rear and the front. Things like that are reviewed at the time that the building permit comes in. So out of all the items that were required, I'll go through each one and just indicate the findings from that particular item. So there was a general development plan drawing that was required. The proposal that was submitted, it had a bunch of information on. It's map 1 in your packets. The proposal was for 212 units. The code allowance is 230 units. There was a requirement for an open space and natural resources protection plan. No wetlands or environmental corridor as defined on those maps will be disturbed. There will be some tree lines that will be removed, some of them for roadways, some of them for just where the development is located, but partial tree lines that would be removed will be, there's a landscape plan that shows that they would be replaced. There's various stands of trees that are on Outlot 6, which is that land in the southeast corner of the development that are designated to be preserved. Open space for the site is 49%, and the minimum based on the uses, there's, in the code, there's a certain amount of uses and different open spaces for those uses is 38.8%. And that represents what I would call the permanent open space, okay? So those are open spaces in outlots. There are requirements in the code for open space on each lot when those lots get built. A traffic impact analysis was prepared. They looked at 8 intersections and evaluated during peak hour traffic. They defined the level of service between the letters A through F, and the existing conditions at this time. Under the existing conditions, we have a level of service of A and B, and under the proposed conditions, we have the same A and B level of service condition for those intersections. I don't have them right in front of me.
Talking to.
So, okay. Improvements, Waukesha County and the DOT basically consider level of service D to be D or better to be acceptable for peak hour traffic, peak hour operating conditions. So the improvements that are required through the traffic study are going to be turn and bypass lanes on Gulf Road and at the two new entrances at the two new entrances along Gulf Road. And that's a requirement from Waukesha County. Not only was it a recommendation from the traffic study, but it was a requirement from Waukesha County. Anytime you have vehicles at a T intersection greater than 2,500 vehicles per day, it's an automatic, you have to put in turn lanes and bypass lanes. And the study indicated that there's about 4,400 vehicles per day on Gulf Road. There's a requirement for a road access plan. So there's 4 access points into the main subdivision, 2 off of Gulf Road, 1 off of Elmhurst, and 1 off of Glen Cove Road. There is no direct east-west cut through the property. There's a way to get from east to west or west to east through the development, but it's not a straight shot. It's not one road that goes straight through there. It's somewhat circuitous. It will have intersections, stop signs, and so it's not a direct shortcut through there. There is a separate access to 8 lots off of Crooked Creek Road. There's a portion of the development that is kind of off of Crooked Creek Road that is not in wetland or environmental corridor, but it is surrounded by wetland and environmental corridor, and it would be very difficult to get an access from the development into that area without destroying or damaging or going through the environmental corridor or the wetland. In regards to sanitary sewer, we did receive from LPSD confirmation that the design capacity for that property is 7 units per developable acres, which is 110 acres, resulting in an opportunity for 770 persons. The projected population from this development is 583 persons, and that's basically 212 units times 2.75 people per unit. LPSD has confirmed that there's sufficient capacity in the existing pipe system as well as at the Water Pollution Control Center in Brookfield, which is where the sewage from this development and around the lake goes. It goes through the village of through the city of Pewaukee, through the village of Pewaukee, and then down to down to Brookfield. A water study was required. And it was also required that SewerPack, DNR, and LPSD be consulted with regard to the water table impacts. The study had to demonstrate that a private water supply would adequately serve the project and not adversely impact private wells or other natural resources. The study was completed and reviewed by SewerPack, Waukesha County, and LPSD. In that study, the conclusion from the water study indicated that the methodology used to calculate the drawdown is the most widely used and accepted solution for calculating drawdown. The average drawdown in the proposed development, assuming infiltration into the groundwater, is estimated to be 4 to 5 feet. The current cumulative drawdown for the developments to the east and west, independent of the proposed development, is estimated to be 7 to 14 feet. And that was done by the GZA study. It indicated that the maximum drawdown is less than the natural groundwater fluctuation of 6 feet, and that flows of groundwater to Pewaukee Lake will be maintained. And that's the conclusions from that study. The preliminary stormwater plan was prepared by the engineer for the developer. That went to Waukesha County for a preliminary review, and they've determined that they will be able to meet ordinance requirements. There's been more work done after the initial submittal of that stormwater plan because there was a push for additional infiltration into the system, and they were able to refine more of their stormwater development to allow 94% of the pre-development flow into to be infiltrated. The requirement from the county is 90%, so they meet and exceed that number. A bike and pedestrian plan was required. The developer has incorporated about 1.9 miles of trails and path. There's a paved path that extends from Glen Cove Road through the development to the Lake Country Trail. There are natural walking paths that are in the open spaces outside of the environmental corridor, and then some that go into the environmental corridor as well. Those would not be paved paths. Those would be natural ground paths or wood chips or something of that nature. The details have not been worked out, although it is shown on the plans. And the other plan that's required is an active recreation plan. So what the developer has provided is a 1 acre, we call it a public pocket park. It's off of Gulf Road, the westerly entrance off of Gulf Road to the subdivision. And then they show amenities such as a pickleball court, garden, picnic areas, and benches in that. So it's a very small park. So the Plan Commission made a recommendation that the petition for the zoning amendment from A1 to PDD number 1 and the general development plan be approved based on the following. The request is in compliance with the town land use plan. The application is complete and all information required by 1704 5R4B has been submitted for review. Findings indicate that each of the GDP required submittal materials identified in the PDD ordinance has been adequately addressed. The general development plan layout has been reviewed in light of the regulations with each subsection of 1704 5R and have been found to be in compliance with the ordinance. Subject to when we do a detailed review of the subdivision plats and construction plans when they come in, which is in accordance with our normal design review process. The development of the property, this is part of their recommendation is that the development of the subject property shall be in substantial conformance with the maps and studies identified in the general development plan. And then I provided a list of those plans and the dates for those plans on this particular page.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to let Mr. Lindgren and Mr. Newman come up and speak, and then we can bring the discussion back to the table.
Thank you. Brian Lindgren with Newman Developments. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and put this forward for a vote tonight. I want to just take a minute to make the comments on the development, respond to some of the concerns that were brought up. I absolutely appreciate the 8 people who made comments tonight. It's those comments that throughout the process that have been taken into consideration throughout the rezoning, throughout the comp plan changes, throughout the creations of the ordinances. Everybody's listening and doing everything they can to respond to those. The one comment that is really interesting, and we hear everywhere, is who speaks for the people that are in favor of it, that aren't here. That's an unfortunate reality, is those people don't show up to these meetings. The family who's been looking for a house has had their 10th offer rejected or countered by somebody else that can't find a house and would desperately love to live in the town of Delafield. Nobody speaks for them. Nobody speaks for the schools who are losing kids and really need them in the classrooms. So nobody speaks for the neighbors who would love to downsize into a home or downsize their lot. Those people aren't present, and we're here to speak for them. That's our job, and try to meet those needs for those people. Some of the other things that were mentioned are already discussed in the review by the Plan Commission. Open space. Yes, the open space looks differently in this neighborhood than it does in the other neighborhoods. 49% of the development is being permanently preserved in open space. It's not in somebody's backyard or front yard. It's in commonly utilized spaces, so it can remain in a natural setting. Density, the arguments have already been discussed about density. We're proposing less units than what are allowed. Everything is for sale. This is really a function of how much things have changed in the last 25 years, 30 years since the adjacent developments were created. You need to conserve public utilities. You need to cluster things and preserve open space, and that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, the LPSD letter was sent in today, so we haven't had a formal chance to respond, but we've been in conversations with LPSD. We've already addressed and responded to these concerns directly with them, and look forward to the opportunity to discuss them in more detail. Some of the things within the letter are under other parties' regulatory authority, soils, basements, and things like that. They're the same soils and basement types of all the adjacent neighborhoods, and will be reviewed, and practices followed as they are everywhere else. The water study continues to come up, and I want to put an emphasis on the water study that is included with the application was done by GZA, which was thoroughly reviewed, most importantly by other parties. That's something that the Collier study was not subjected to. There's errors in the Collier study. There's general statements.
He doesn't get 3 minutes.
He doesn't get 3 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. So yes, that's a very important point. Is that
Order. The discussion's up here. Not. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to conclude that, I think it's very important to realize that the water study that is included with the packet was reviewed by multiple times by the town, by the county, by Sewer PAC, the experts involved in that. So they've weighed in. So that's the study that contains data and contains peer-reviewed expert analysis. Some of the other things that I just want to address is, we're presenting an application to rezone a property. This rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan that was changed to residential at the request of neighbors and through this process. Yes, we are using a planned development district. Planned unit developments are common throughout the area municipalities, and they're always unique to a development. That is something here that we've already discussed, and it was proactively done, asking for the specific studies and the reviews that had to be done to approve this. That's common of a planned development district. We really, as a developer and a home builder in this area, we take this very seriously, what we do, the developments that we create, the homes that we build for families, and this is no different than the rest. We feel like this, when complete, is going to be a development, as a town resident myself, that people are going to look at and be proud of. This is absolutely well-planned, well-designed. Look forward to proving people wrong, that when this comes to fruition, you can bike through it, you can come drive the neighborhood and enjoy it, future residents and current residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move back to the board level here. I'm going to start on this end of the table with Supervisor Mahoney Ogden. She can give her comments, and we can start, just go down the
Okay.
table and kind of see.
Well, I am
We're-
glad to talk about this because, as you know, we aren't able to discuss this. And there's lots of questions I've had from my fellow supervisors. And I want to start with a few things that are on my mind. There's actually a lot, but fundamentally, I'm opposed to what we're doing. I think our Attorney Janzer mentioned it back here with the spot zoning and what we did for this district. It's wrong. I'm opposed to the 10,000. I'm opposed to the 10,000 square foot lots. It goes against everything that we are in the town of Delafield. I had no idea that, I think Mr. Frett had what he gave us earlier. I actually had already done this. I was in earlier in the week and asked for Tim to give me this. And I just want to throw out to you, I started thinking, I looked at all of our subdivisions in the town of Delafield, and I just started running through them, and I'm just going to point out a few. And so we've got 150 acres here. And we're doing 212 lots. I also want to comment to this, when we came to the 10,000 square foot lots, after the meeting, I went to you guys, Newman, and I was concerned about that. I said, I'm opposed to this. And your answer was, well, we're not going to be using them everywhere. It's just for the condos. Okay, of the 212 lots, 174 of them are on 10,000 square foot lots. It looks nothing like what we have on either side. Are you with me? Look at your plans. I mean, we've got some of the 15,000 square foot lots up in Zone 2, but Zone 3 and 4 are the condo clusters and these lots that are primarily 10. Maybe they're 12, maybe they're 11, but they're in that 10,000 square foot lot. Personally, I went over the weekend. I went over to the Newman Development and Paps Farms, and I drove in looking for those lots, looking for the small lots. And quite frankly, the folks in the they were a little embarrassed, like, oh, well, those are the ones kind of over there. They're kind of I don't want to sound, but they're kind of like the not nicer ones. That's what the people in the community were saying. So I drive over there, and I look at them, and we don't want to look at that. This is the town of Delafield. You drive in, it's one after the other of front-facing garages. One of the things in here, you guys said, Newman, that this is going to be attractive. That is not attractive to see house after house after house, exactly the same, with front-facing garages. There's no character, and I get it that you're trying to cluster them in there. One of the things from the LPSD report that we just got, again, that I don't think you know how we could vote on anything today because that report, we haven't even had time to review it, talked about the fact that is that, there's concern about even having basements. So if there's concern about having basements, we need to have bigger garages. Well, how in the world are we going to get a bigger garage on a little 10,000 square foot lot when there's no room to put it? So I think that the neighbors, the residents in the town have been telling us from the get-go, we want it to look like what's next to us. And so I think that's really, my comments are, you're getting close, maybe kind of, sort of, but you need to go back, you guys, and do what the residents are asking. They want a development that looks like the neighboring one. So that's that's one little comment about that. My other little thing is the traffic. I did speak with the traffic gentleman who did the study at one of the last meetings, and I went up to him and just said, oh, come on. I said, why did you pick February? The snowbirds are gone, the college kids aren't here, and his comment to me was that, well, that's just when the state of Wisconsin does the traffic studies. And I said, okay. He said, that's like the rule or the law. I'm not going to, but that's exactly, he's not here today, otherwise, but that's what he said to me. I did actually ask a couple of people about that. Nobody had ever heard of that. My huge concern was that's fine if you want to do it in February, but we all know, these folks who live here, that's not indicative of what our traffic is. We are not just one of your normal little communities in the state of Wisconsin. We are along a major interstate, and in the summer, that interstate is full of people driving up north. And when they go up north, there's traffic. And when there's an accident, they get off and they get on Gulf Road. We are not a typical, I don't think that traffic study was indicative of what you needed to do an additional one. Maybe it was true for February, but that's not what happens here in the summer. And we're along Pewaukee Lake, and we're along a boat launch. It's just like the perfect storm of why we have traffic. I'm concerned that in this, there's no room that, maybe we do need to have a roundabout at Glen Cove and Gulf, and so maybe we need to be thinking about that. There's no room for it in the plan, so that's a little bit about there. And then obviously my last big concern is the whole thing about the studies. And I know we just got LPSD's study, and they clearly said in there, we're putting the cart before the horse. We shouldn't be thinking about rezoning something when we don't even have all the ducks in a row yet. There's conflicts with the Collier report and what GZA did. You guys did GZA because Well, you got your own, I mean, you guys can do that. You did your GZA study. The Collier report, there are conflicts. You're talking about, oh, well, GZA report that you guys did said, well, we can do okay and have wells in the not such a deep area. If you go to the Collier report, they clearly say we need to go through the Mekashaka Shale or whatever and get down deep. So are you guys prepared to say we're going to be having all of our people have these extra deep wells? That does add your price up quite a bit. So I just see contradictions between the two reports. I feel like it kind of came in at the last minute. I'm concerned that our Planning Commission, nor does this board have any engineers. I'm grateful for some of the professional advice we've gotten from other engineers in our community. I mean, this isn't our bailiwick, and certainly it wasn't Planning Commission's. I was very disappointed that there wasn't any more discussion. I think somebody said it, that they didn't ask any questions. I mean, they're not engineers, so I think they just assume, okay, everything's fine. I have concern about that. The gem of Pewaukee Lake, we know we have to have a guarantee. How we could rezone right now before we even have the guarantees of the future and the cherishment of our gem in our area of Pewaukee Lake. And there's just too many inconsistencies with that. So anyhow, that's where I'm at. And then I really guess I say to you guys as my fellow supervisors is that this has been going on a long time. I wasn't here part of, and some of this, it's not your fault. You know, we had a former leader who opened up a can of worms. You know, our former heads of state, I should say, our former directors, our former people who would have been sit in this town, have long-standing, would have said no, and have said no, you know, to even opening up a can of worms of what we've done with looking at rezoning this property. So, but we're new leaders. We are not the people who really kind of got this going. Again, Ron Choi isn't here anymore, but I feel that it wasn't, and then you've got Kevin, and I just feel like we're kind of feeling like they're just sort of bullying us all to do this. Nobody has a gun to our head. We're supposed to represent our people who have, and they've made it loud and clear. Everybody knows it's going to get developed. Let's just have it look like what's around, not little cookie cutter lots with, yes, there's open space, but the clustering 20,000 square foot lots, I mean, 10,000 square foot lots is not appropriate. So I really kind of look at it, especially because we got all this last minute information. And then I understand that there was residents who disagree, and we haven't even had a chance to look at that. I understand that, you know, I know we just got the letter from LPSD. So I think our choices are we can either deny the whole thing alone, just be done with it, start over, give it back to Newman. Just give us what the people want. You're nodding your head, but they're here. They're telling you, I mean, they want bigger lots. They don't want what you did in Paps Farms. That's not what we need in the town of Delafield. And so I think you just need to kind of come up with a better plan. And just as important, then we need to make sure that we are going to protect Pewaukee Lake. We're going to care about our stormwater and our sewer. There's just too many unknowns to even think of voting yes. So I'd say our choices are tonight. We either deny it upright, we table it, and let them go back to the drawing board. So that's my opinion. So anybody else? I'd love to hear yours.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
While I agree the land will be developed, I'm not sure when that's going to happen, I feel very uncomfortable that I should approve this zoning amendment. I see no trust between our taxpayers and Newman Development and the landowners. Nothing. I haven't heard or read one single positive feedback coming from our taxpayers, our residents. From the moment I ran the election 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, my single mission is to represent everyone in the community. And I'm not comfortable moving forward on this project. So what tells me that Newman Development will likely work with us, the town board, when, you know, so many unanswered questions are on the table. Thank you for all the details you shared tonight. I really appreciate how elaborated you were, talking about all the different issues we've talked about.
I'm just skimming over, I feel like, some of the issues with how we're doing with our stormwater and our wells. I'm just sort of bringing them up, that there are conflicts and there are things we need to know before we would rezone.
So I don't think it's reasonable because it's not responsible. That's where I stand.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. Supervisor Wolfley?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest question for me, and I think one of the biggest hurdles of this entire property is I'd love to hear how you suggest that we make the Thomases come to us and request this to be rezoned as R1. How do you make?
This is not my job to come up with
Well,
a solution.
Okay, right, but I mean, so how do you make them do with their property something that, like, change that zoning to R1?
Solutions were not fully identified.
This isn't.
This is.
Solutions were not fully identified. It's a fact.
When this was presented as the PDD or PUD, right? The
PDD.
Of course, it's interchangeable. When you talk about what is available to go there, right? And we talked about this prior, the max availability on this property, right, is like 289 units or something?
230.
230, well, I mean, before that, right? If by doing the overlay on it, it was prior, it was greater than the 230 initially, right? And so the property owners still have rights in what they can do with their land, right? And so when you talk about you guys.
So I'm just going to make this very simple comment. Just because you're checking all the boxes in the process doesn't make it right.
No.
That's how I think.
Well,
What?
I do want to, I want to hear you talk, so I don't know if I should answer you now on this point, or just, I think it's like.
Just let him talk, and then
Okay.
you can have a rebuttal.
Again, again, when you talk about what this was before this project started, right? You've got the ability, what it was, agriculture, commercial overlay on the property, okay? That was a piece that was from like the 90s, okay? And now, so what you're dealing with is where do we bring it to, right? This property was not, the original map, again, when Tim was here in the early 90s, it was already there, right? Overlaid, not residential, okay? So that's the beginning of this problem, because this was not a mapped residential property, right? You end up asking them to move it from here, right, to residential 1, to R1, to, the consensus, whether it's, I've heard, I want 3-acre lots, I want 1-acre lots, I want half-acre lots, everything in between, right? But you're asking the property owners to move the line to develop you guys.
I'll go, Joe. You want me to go? Mr. Chairman, I'll go.
This is no. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. You guys, if you think that what I'm looking for in a development is like as many property pieces and parcels as you can get on it, it's incorrect. When you talk about where this was when we started in March of 21, right? The initial proposal on this was pushing up on, depending on how you broke it out, 850 to 900 units, right? It came down to 464. Same in March of 21. It was down to 306 in March of 22. It was down to 260 in July of 22. The zoning meeting 250, which got applause at 250. The town board approved it at 230. It's down to 212. To imply that we haven't done things to move the property to a residential only, right? Which again, this initial proposal was senior living, mixed use. All of these are now single unit uses, all individual tax keys, right? It meets the definition of a low yes, it is.
We have side-by-side condos.
Side-by-side condos is still a separate tax key. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's separate tax keys. It's all individual unit owned. You're talking, it meets the definition of a low-density development by the county. It meets the definition of a conservancy.
That's enough. Seriously, that's enough. This is not a discussion with the peanut gallery out there, okay? This is the board level.
I'm sorry, we're a peanut Residents of Delafield, we're not peanut.
You've had your opportunity to speak. It's our turn to speak now.
Insult us by calling us peanut galleries.
Where was The implication that we haven't done what we can do to move the needle on this property and not take into account traffic, sewer, stormwater is just not correct, right? This property has had more testing on it before it's been even approved to be rezoned than any of the subdivisions that surround this and butt up to the lake. And then, so like, what are we now concerned about, right? It's the size of the lot. People don't like that they're put together. 10,000 square foot lots is not, we've got them on our street. We've got them in several different places. You've got them at Hillcrest and Bittersweet. There's all along the lake development, south of Woodridge, Shady Lane. 10,000 square foot lots predates the subdivisions that are here, right? It's cyclical. Like, this is not my ideal picture of what I'd like to see, but also, where does it go when we shut it down? If you shut it down, how do you move the needle on where it goes to? What are you going to make the property owner do, right? How are you going to make the property owner decide that what they want to do with their property is your vision? And that's the question that I've asked, and no one can answer.
Well, I don't think it's my vision. It's these people's vision.
Okay.
You know, I think, when, Ed, the property by you, okay, they're very, very similar. 150 acres. When I asked, well, why don't we have the same zoning as what, I can't remember the name of it, the one right by you, Woodridge Estates. The comment was, because ours is by the highway. I am so dang tired of hearing that. You know, I think there was a gentleman, Nick Berkey, who gave some great statistics in one of our meetings about he lives in High Point Estates. How, yes, that's right by the highway. These are by the highway. They are selling, Brian, okay? You know, we don't need a 10,000 square foot little house all next to each other to sell. The houses that are there now, when they go up, they sell, and they are by the highway. So, I mean, why is this any different? What you guys did over there off of Maple, do that here. I don't think you're going to have people complaining then. It's just a pretty subdivision. Everybody has big lots. We aren't looking at coming in and looking at do. So that's my comment on that one. Joe.
Michaels.
The one other piece too here,
Yes.
guys. The concern here on what happens, right? If we haven't come to something that meets these requirements, right? That's the biggest question. Where do you think it's going to go, right? Because I can tell you where I think it's going to go. I think it gets the town sued because we've asked people to spend money that they have spent. Okay, they've passed the tests, and those tests have now aligned with what we have asked for a year ago, or however long ago it was that we. Hold on, let me finish. Right, and then ultimately, I don't know how familiar. I'm not an attorney. Can check down to our attorney here, but if you haven't read some of the language around Act 16 and zoning by right, like the things that are the things that are potentially coming and are potentially being proposed, right, are of a concern, right? And if what does it look like if you go with this or you don't go with this, can you be sure that what comes next isn't more dense than that?
And I'm so sad that you are voting out of fear, that your concern is to
It's not
to
voting out
protect-
of fear.
Well, you are, though.
I'm also
You're-
not. I am not voting out of fear. I'm not voting out of fear. I've lived on that street for 30 years too. Okay, I've grown up there. I have 4 kids there. I am happy to raise my 4 kids there. And you know what? When I look at this and see a bunch of open space and bike paths and opportunities for people, for other families to enter the town of Delafield at a price that isn't $1.25 million, it's at least a opportunity for additional people to enter the town. I look at this, and this is livable. This is fine. You know what I don't want to see? I don't want to see what's being proposed for a mile and a half up the road on Gulf Road in the city of Pewaukee, right? Basically, you guys. It's a mile and a half away. And again, okay. And when you're talking about, all right.
Order.
You guys.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
Well, but even when you're saying that, those people in the city are all going to be on the traffic coming our direction. I mean, we're not even counted that into the traffic study. Okay, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
So,
Steve, go ahead, Supervisor Michaels.
Thank you. Supervisor Ogden, excuse me. I agree with you. We don't get to talk about this, and it's frustrating. I'm glad to hear your voice tonight, and I'm glad we can have this discussion. I wish it was under more friendly circumstances for us to have more open dialogue than with the interruptions, but we got what we got. I also agree with you that there was a can of worms on this property that was opened, and I would go back even further, and it's that it was zoned industrial. That's a big mistake that was made. I don't know why that's what it was. It never fit with the neighborhoods next to it. Having lots of orthopedic associates or having light industrial in there would have been very bad for the town. And I think since 2021, or 2021, I went back and read all my emails from then that I've been involved with it. We've made great progress, right? We are not at light industrial. We're not there, right? The town no longer has this property zoned to be used for business purposes. There is no orthopedic associate going there, right? That's big progress. That was a gigantic win that this body made with assistance from a lot of folks here, including yourself, Supervisor Ogden. As I read your emails from back then, like, you're right. That's not what should go on this property. Your comment at the time, which I agreed with, was that this should be single-family residential with condominiums and green space. And in large part, that's where we're at today. I want to hear what you have to say further, and I want to hear your ideas, not specifically like you're speaking up there, but I want to hear specifics. Like, if you have ideas, I think you said we're getting close. Are we getting close, or is this a no, right? Those are two different things to me. Are you interested in working with this plan and this development in a way that gets you to yes, or is it always a no? And so that's, a discussion I think we should have and really vet out. I'm very, very happy as I looked through a lot of my correspondence over the years from everybody that there is no apartment complexes on here. I agree there was 3-story buildings at one point. That was not an appropriate fit. And so when I see this and it doesn't have that, I take comfort.
Senior living.
I also agree that the senior living is a big thing not to have. If you are concerned about water and sewer, my goodness, what a senior living facility would do to those concerns.
Services.
That's a big deal. I think this is single-family residential. I have voiced my concern about the 10,000 square foot lots in the past. I've done it at this body and other plan commission meetings. And I have lots of thoughts on them, and everyone that comments to me, I think very deeply about it. First, I will say, Supervisor Ogden, for your background in this discussion, I do not live on a 20,000 square foot lot in the town of Delafield. It is much smaller than that. My home is appraised at about 50% of what these would sell for. So if I'm not welcome in the town, having a smaller lot that does not meet $600,000, there's a lot of places like that. So I come from a perspective where I don't have a big lot, and I don't have a big home. So I think deeply about that with the 10,000 square foot lots. I was very uncomfortable with them. And my comfort grew as the number of units went down. So in my head, and I'm open for discussion on this, is when we were at about 250, 260 units, that's what you could get on this in the R3 under our current zoning code. So someone could come here and have that number of units at 20,000 square feet. And so as the number came down to 230, I agreed to the planning district, and as the number is now well below that at 212, my concern about the 10,000 square foot lots is lessened because it's a different style of neighborhood that doesn't necessarily maximize it. I appreciate how different it is. It seems to be popular amongst young families. I too, like you, I went through the village of Summit, and I've spent time driving there, and that's what I saw was strollers, walking paths, and things like that. So I I want to hear more from you. I want to hear about your concerns. I don't, I do agree with Supervisor Wolfley that this has been studied. I mean, I've read in several reports that I read very intently that the Pewaukee Lake seems to be protected in here. If you've read something different than that, please point it out to me specifically.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like the studies are saying different things, and even our letter from Pewaukee Sanitary said I mean, we need to figure that out, I think, for sure, before we would rezone anything.
Well,
I mean, are we supposed to listen to professionals, experts?
well, we got a lot of expert
it's their
studies here,
jobs,
Supervisor Miller, and I'm asking you the question. Like, I've read it all, guys.
So, here's the other question for you, Supervisor Michael. You basically, you're saying people prefer small lots over
I think
big
this is
ones,
a popular
bigger ones.
style of neighborhood. I think I mean, I've had some people call me and I mean, these are
As far as I'm
$500,000
concerned-
homes, right? I think there's a popularity to this sort of walking space conservation. I have a lot of friends who have actively chosen to move to neighborhoods specifically like this in Summit or north of us.
Yes, come on.
So.
I'm not an expert in real estate, but I disagree with you. I
What's
will
your take
never allow
on it,
myself
Supervisor
to make a
Miller? Go
comment
ahead.
like that. Well, I pretend to know what people like, prefer, or dislike. That is not my.
Well, I think the
So,
market would
That's where I
dictate.
disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite popular. I mean, the prices that they go for
That's
show
not
that.
up to us to actually
My
make that
comment
statement.
My comment, again, I keep hearing, we are the town of Delafield. We aren't the cities. We're different. We don't have to do what cities are doing. They might be popular, then that's where your friends should go with their strollers.
And like you said, it's cyclical.
I agree
It
with
goes
you.
in cycles.
No, I agree. This is the town of Delafield, but we've town of Delafield this thing to death. I mean, if you look at the other developments and other communities, this thing, it wouldn't have been 5 years. I mean, they would have allowed the multifamily. I mean, I've gotten a lot of phone calls over the last couple days saying, hey, I thought you were against this development. I thought you were against this stuff. I was like, yeah, I was against it back in March of 21. March of 21, we had multifamily, we had senior living, we had over 900 units, okay? And I remember very vividly, Chairman Troy asked me, so Supervisor Kranik, where do you want to see the density? And I said 250. And this room busted out in applause.
Cheers.
And we got to, the ordinance, and we got to 250. And then when the ordinance passed at 230. And then, we want to see the Arbors of Dover Bay. And then we throw out calculations of the surrounding neighborhoods, but we conveniently leave out the High Ridge condos and the other condo developments in the neighborhood. I mean, we've done our due diligence, we've done our studies. We can't all live on acre and a half properties, and, we need a certain amount of, housing diversity in the town of Delafield. I mean, at the end of the day, there's no commercial, there's no light industrial, there's no multifamily, there's no senior. We heard loud and clear that we want a residential, single-family subdivision. So when I hear that, hey, we're not listening to the neighbors, we're giving you a residential, single-family subdivision. And the density does fit the neighborhood. I mean, at 1.3, on 152 acres, at the end of the day, under our current R3 zoning, they could come in and try to get 240 units on a condo development. And
Correct.
without any studies, without any of this stuff. Yeah, Supervisor Michael, I agree. The big misnomer was that front 100 acres was zoned in that red in the commercial, had the commercial zoning.
We've been walking that back for 5 years. It was a gigantic mistake that we've been really trying to recover from.
The
See,
additional.
I disagree. I don't think that's so horrid. Again, but that's my opinion. I don't think I'm representing the
Prefer
residents.
commercial?
You want to go back to commercial? Like, I mean, honestly.
Along the front, if there could be another Orthopedic Associates and everything else behind it is residential. But again, I don't think that's what the people want. I'm here because this is what the people voted me to sit here. I
Supervisor Ogden,
personally-
you are not the people. You are a board member. Why don't you motion to return this to light industrial and manufacturing then, if that's what you want? Like, I mean, honestly, if that's what you're suggesting is better.
No, I'm suggesting that we listen to the people, and they want a residential neighborhood.
Yeah,
And so my question is, Woodridge, how did, Newman, how did you guys, I mean, why don't you just do what you did for Woodridge? Do that for the Thomas property?
It makes sense to put a Woodridge there.
Wait a minute, you all, hold on.
I'd like
Wait,
to know the answer to that question as well, actually.
minute,
I really would like to know the
Are
answer
we
to that
inviting,
question.
are we inviting our developer to,
Yeah, I'm allowing Mr. Newman to speak.
I don't think I'll need 3 minutes, but am I limited to 3 in case?
No, you're,
Just
You're-
active
you're on the
dialogue
agenda.
among the board? Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Matt Newman from Newman Developments. This is not a pleasure to be here tonight, to be honest. I've been doing this about 20 years. We've developed hundreds of developments in over 50 municipalities. Sometimes we have the pleasure of working in our own backyard, which is this. Those of you that might have been a part of this, Woodridge was brought up. That was much like this. Quite honestly, I don't know if any of you were there. It was actually in the old town hall building. I think there were actually more people. I think there were 74 people at that first public hearing. It was incredibly uncomfortable. Brian and I sit here, we do the best we can. It's not like we don't care about this community, you guys. We care about this community. This is our community. Brian lives in the community. I live adjacent to this community. We've been here, we raise our families here. And regardless of whatever happens tonight, by the way, Kathy said it before, I hope we're still friends. We're gonna see you guys around. Like, we're gonna see you in Century, or we're gonna see you in Pick and Save, we're gonna see you in Sendix. So like, we're not like some out-of-state people that are out of touch with the community. Like, we really do care about what we do. So whether we agree or don't agree on this, that is truly who we are as people. We've been doing this a long time. We do more of it than anyone else in this area, at least. We've been asked to do more studies on this property than we ever have at this stage in a project. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just telling you factually. We've been asked to do more at this stage in this project than we ever have before. And that's okay. This is a very sensitive project. We had, I can't tell you how many debates internally among our team, whether or not we should even enter our company into this project. We've been watching this project from the sidelines, fortunately, for years. The last 4 or 5 years, because it seems to have been a lot more active, but actually this property's been talked about for decades. So this isn't like a new conversation or the first time it's been brought up. This has been going on for a long time. What I wanted to say, and I'll address Woodridge directly if you'd like. I think that was one of the questions. Maybe there's others, and Brian and I will do the best we can, you guys, to fully and transparently answer any question we can. I think we've got enough studies coming out our ears here that we can probably refer to studies to answer any technical questions. But what I did want to say is, we didn't really get involved in this actively, as in like being the ones in the hot seat here, which truly it's not enjoyable, you guys. Like, we don't enjoy sitting here and arguing with everyone. It's not fun. But we do the best we can. We really believe this is needed in the community. I understand that you all don't feel it fits in the area. The world is a little different today than it has been in the past, though. We do think we know there's a market demand for this, whether you agree with it being here or not. There is for sure a market demand. We just did a development of 332 home sites like 4 miles away from here in the village of Summit. And the village of Summit is a wonderful community, but the town of Delafield, from a market standpoint, is more desirable than the village of Summit. That's not a slight to Summit. Summit's great, but the closer you get to Milwaukee, the more desirable it is for commuters and things like that. So we know, I'm just speaking about real estate development, like, we know that. We know this is desirable. That's why a 10,000 square foot home site can support a 5, and 500 is probably not the right number because that was probably a year ago. Now it's like 550 at the lowest, most likely. I don't even know if we can hit 550 anymore. It's probably 550 and up for even the smallest home sites that back directly up to I-94. So that's the reality of it. But what I wanted to say is, we didn't get involved in this and get in this wonderful hot seat that we're in until after the town of Delafield and Waukesha County and all of you spent years talking about the background that the town board is discussing here tonight. So we got involved after, and I'm not gonna say everyone's opinions were agreed to, because there's no way you'd ever get everyone to agree to something on a project like this. But once there was a plan set, once the town said, hey, we don't want light industrial, we don't want office, we want residential. We heard these conversations, we talked to the developers that wanted to do multifamily, that wanted to do retirement housing, assisted living. They came to us and said, do you guys want to do the single family in the north end? And we'll do all the multifamily in the south end. We'll do the retirement housing. So we've been on the sidelines. We said, until we know what the town wants and what the town's willing to approve and what the county's willing to do, we're not going to get involved. It's just, that's the way it's going to be. So then once this master comp plan got updated, that's when we said, okay, This is actually what we do. Like, we said all along, we thought there should be about 250 home sites here. This goes back years. We said that would make a ton of sense in that area. And if something like that happens, we'd be happy to get involved. So then the PUD came in, or I'm sorry, the comp plan got updated for all residential. We said, great, that's what we do, we'll get involved. And then there was a list of things that came out and said, if you want to do this, you have to do all these studies. If you have less than 230 units and you do all these studies, we're going to be supportive of it. That's what it's, I'm not saying that's what any individual person said. I'm not saying that's what any of you said. I'm saying, practically speaking, that's how zoning works, is when you say, this is what we as a community want. And if you meet these requirements and you do these studies, then that's what we're going to do. And so we as a, I'm not saying all of you individually agreed with the plan that was passed. What I'm saying is the comp plan was passed, and I'm sorry, this is taking more than 3 minutes, but it was passed. We followed the rules. We're not here to argue about whether or not what was planned months ago is what should be done. All we're saying is we met the requirements. We believe it's going to be a great fit. We stand behind our product. I personally think $550,000 homes are wonderful. I think that there's going to be $900,000 and $1 million homes in the northwest corner. I'm sorry we have to go through that neighborhood. I don't know who spoke of that. We don't have a choice. There's no other way to access those 8 lots. So just leave it like worth 0. Yeah, I mean, that's not really fair to the landowner who has rights to do something with their land. So again, at the end of the day, the decision here tonight, I think, for the board, and please feel free to ask me or Brian any questions. I'm happy to respond to you directly, of course, the best we can. But I think the decision tonight is this, as far as, like, where do you go from here if the answer is no? Where do we go from here? This was in your master plan. We followed the master plan. We followed the rules. I believe we've done all the studies. If there's other questions you have that you'd like us to answer that are not in those studies, let us know. We probably have them. We just have to find them. But where do you go from here if not this? Do you go back to the industrial zoning? Do you go back to office? Like, I just don't know where you go from here if you don't approve what's in your master comp plan. And from our standpoint, we're just trying to follow what you guys laid out and told us we could do about a year ago, and that's what we're here proposing. So again, if there's direct questions, why can't we do Woodridge? I think that was one of the questions.
Yes.
Woodridge was 150 acres. We developed 80 home sites. Originally, we proposed 120 home sites there. That development in particular had less developable land because there's a bunch of woods on that. If I recall, I don't remember the exact dimensions of the wooded area, but there's a large wooded parcel on that we could not develop as well. And at the end of the day, that also is not, and I know this is going to be popular, I'm just going to say it though, it is not on I-94. It is not the traffic flow and the sound coming off of I-94 on the southern half of this development is dramatically different than when you're on the north side of Pewaukee Lake. And so the ability to sell, call it $800,000 to $1.5 million homes, which is what we have in Woodridge, is very different than selling homes on the southern, I'm going to call it southern third of this, because actually I'm not concerned about the sound as much as you go further north. But on the southern third of this property, there is a significant amount of interstate noise, and I am concerned that I think it'd be very hard to sell $800,000 homes in that environment.
And then my comments to you on that one is what we're already doing it. I mean, we're already selling them. We've got High Point Estates right there. You know, I mean, they're already being sold. So when you say that they won't sell, that's not true, Matt. They will sell, you know. So that's one comment. I don't think you're accurate with there. They're both 150 acres parcels, the Woodridge and the Thomas property. I mean, 212/80. You did 80 there, you said 212. I mean, that's just significantly different. I mean, I think going back to, can we get anywhere, what you said, Steve, what's right? Can we get anywhere closer to what you did at Woodridge? So that's the one comment. Your comment about that there's a market for this. Indeed, there is. There is a market for this kind of housing. I don't disagree with you, but not in the town of Delafield. We are in the town. This is just, it doesn't belong here.
There's a market for it, you just don't.
There's a market for it, but
You're
we
saying it
shouldn't be
doesn't-
doing it in the town of Delafield because it's not what the town of Delafield has always stood for. So, and this is the gateway to the Lake Country. And I'm sorry, you guys, I don't want what I just saw over there at Pap's Farms and going in and see, that's just not what, you come in, oh, welcome to Delafield, and people are actually a little embarrassed, oh, those are the lots over there. So, those are my comments on, they are sellable, so you can build a big house there, they will. People like being close to the expressway, that they can get to where they need to go. So, the houses, I mean, people, they're selling already, so that was my comment on that one. Anybody else have questions besides me?
Thank you for better articulating that than I did. One question, in the traffic study, they studied the exact surrounding couple intersections, and a couple questions were just asked about the impact at Gulf and E, which was not included, I understand, which was just brought to my attention. I didn't have it with me earlier. Is that would they anticipate that there's no service level change at these, so it wouldn't continue out? Or I guess what was the thought
Do you
behind
know how
that?
far out they go on that, Brian? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can answer that. We brought all our experts in for the Plan Commission to answer those questions. The parameters of a traffic study, in particular here being in relation to a county highway, are established by the county highway department. So those are followed. And yes, the general nature is, as you go farther away from the directly impacted intersections, the impact lessens and lessens and lessens, because you have to take into account larger and larger areas of people. So
Why was that traffic study, done in March of 2023?
traffic studies are done year round. The counts are done at the time of the study. They're compared to numbers that are provided by the state and the county highway department. And they're utilized in calculating impacts on intersections. And as you look at the report, you'll see very clearly that the intersections surrounding this area are rated levels of service by levels of service, A or B. That doesn't change post-development. And we can talk about, well, what happens when the snowbirds leave or come or go, or lake traffic comes. Impact to these intersections, we're talking 100 vehicles a day? I'm not sure. I'm not a traffic engineer myself.
Well, that's exactly what we need to figure
That isn't enough
out.
to change the level of service of the intersection. That's the reality of the study.
When that study was done, March of 2023, I believe it made it inaccurate, irrelevant. We don't measure traffic in the
What is the
month of
basis
March
for that opinion?
for an area
I'm sorry.
where,
I have to give my credence to a traffic engineer.
Yeah, I mean, I specifically asked the traffic engineer during the plan commission the relevance of it, and basically, they handicap it, and they're able to normalize the data, and I believe the traffic study was very accurate and very.
I'm sure it
So
was
we're basically-
accurate for the time it was done. And he didn't have anything to say to me when I asked him that it should have been done when we actually have traffic.
Well, it adjusted
And I
for-
know that that's not all your responsibility, but you can't just walk away and act like it's not
well,
there.
it's based on assumptions.
Yeah.
That's what it's bothering me.
Right, so like, the assumption here is that there's less traffic in February and March, right, than there is in June?
Different traffic.
Different times of day too, right? School traffic, well, it's different. Traffic times of day, anyway, I'm not a traffic engineer, but obviously when kids are in school, traffic flow is different than when kids aren't in school, right? Summertime, and there's more traffic, there's more people in the summertime than in the wintertime, right? That's the whole premise of this. The point is, what a traffic study does is say, when there's new traffic units, how is that going to impact the existing condition? So the reality is, what the existing condition is and when they do it is irrelevant to say whether or not this is going to impact that existing condition. I don't know if I'm making sense of what I'm explaining, but what I'm saying is, whether it was 100 today or 200 today, the existing condition is rated a level A or B, right? And what it's saying is the impact of this development, which is the intent of a traffic impact analysis, is to say, what's the impact of the new project going to have on the existing condition? And the conclusion is, it's not going to change the existing condition meaningfully enough to impact those intersections. So all I'm getting at is to say, it doesn't matter whether they did it in February or March or whether they did it in June. The existing conditions are what they are. What the traffic impact analysis said is this development is not going to trigger enough new traffic to negatively impact those intersections from their current condition. That's what the A and B ratings are.
Yeah, and
I'm just trying to explain the context of, like, Tim, you're an engineer. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're probably the most qualified person, at least that I know in this room, to answer that question. That's the intent of the impact, is what's the impact of the new development? We hire professionals to do this. They said it's not going to impact it. I can't really undermine that because that's what they told
Any
us.
comments about that this is not your typical traffic study, where this there's along I-94 for
Yeah,
all the up north
I don't think
people,
that's
for
an
the
accurate
lake, for
statement
the.
either. This is a typical traffic study, and I think an argument can be made any time of year that the traffic counts are variable. So if this was done in February or March, no, you don't have summer golf traffic or lake traffic, but you have school traffic. If this is done in July, you have lake traffic and golf traffic, but you don't have school traffic. School traffic is something that needs to be taken into account too. So that's why the county and the state DOT provide blended data and traffic counts that can be used to balance out these fluctuations in time of year questions.
But again, we're not traffic engineers, you guys. Like, that's why this is one of the 15 studies or whatever we had to pay for to have done. We did. They used the basis. Like, they didn't try to pick a low traffic month to like somehow, you know, create a different result. They just said, based on current intersections are fine. With your proposed development, they're still fine.
Do any of my other supervisors here have a feeling that having a roundabout would ease what, you know, and we don't want lights in the town of Delafield, but if you, I mean, I'm just trying, because we already, and the problem we have isn't your fault. We already have a problem, so, I mean, how can we, if we're gonna add all this, how can we make it better?
If you feel that there's a problem already, then we should have brought that up at budget time, and we should talk to Waukesha County, and we should address the problem.
We actually, I did talk to Dan about that.
There's a problem at peak times. There's a problem everywhere at peak times, okay? So the traffic study was valid. It met the requirements of the ordinance, and it was a legitimate traffic study using the traffic manuals and the DOT and the county standards. So we can debate the validity of it, but at the end of the day, it's a valid study, and we need to use the professionals that we.
Okay, I'm not saying it wasn't a valid study, I'm just saying we need an additional one at a different time of the year.
And per my comment earlier, just because we're checking boxes and we're meeting the requirements, doesn't make it right.
You're getting a residential, single-family subdivision, which is what we've heard. We heard, I mean, if you want us to throw it back and, talk about commercial and light industrial and commercial, multifamily, senior living, and,
No, we're not, yeah.
but,
I just don't understand where the objection from a professional engineer's study on a DOT study, a water study, and a sewer study, like,
Well,
is
because-
to be questioned.
Well, the traffic study we already talked about. I mean,
Okay.
I think we got the Collier's report. And to me, they kind of said different things. I mean, Collier report was done by LPSD on their own. You guys did GZA because that's who you guys did it. And it just, that was your choice to do a different one. It was almost like when you said it the other day when I was listening, it was almost like, well, we didn't really like Collier report, so we did GZA. And I know that's not, but it seemed like when I read through the GZA, and I'm not an engineer, it was based on hypothetical models, formulas, from the nearby areas, but nothing specifically on that site. How many wells have you dug in that site, on the Thomas property?
How many wells does the Collier report take into consideration?
I mean,
Zero.
yeah, and
Zero.
I think but the question is that you
How many wells
need
were
to be.
reviewed in the GZA study? 148, I think, adjacent wells?
I think the issue is that we have to know for sure before we just go jumping in, before we rezone anything. I mean, that's like, I can't rezone something when I don't know what it's going to handle it.
The two studies both stated there would not be an impact to Pewaukee Lake. Collier and GZA studies.
Do we have anybody here from LPSD who can comment on this, just to, I mean,
yeah, he's out of order. I mean, he's not being recognized to speak, I mean.
well, I think Dan said because Pewaukee Lake Sanitary District is part of our, that's a municipality. This isn't just one of the professionals that are in our audience that have helped us, but.
This is our meeting at our body, and the chairman can recognize speakers if he chooses, so.
Right,
I mean, that's how the meeting is run.
Right, I mean, at the end of the day, LPSD has said that they can handle the density and the sewer and the sewage capacity. So, I mean, as far as, where we're standing right now with LPSD, we have the information that we need to move forward, because they've said that they can service this development at this density and handle the capacity and get it to the city of Brookfield.
And the
for
letter that we
processing.
got today, at the end of the day, you've carefully read this and, you know, to really discern everything that it says. And even on here, it says here, the issues of concern listed are above too important. The issues of concern listed above are important to address and solutions identified prior to rezoning the site. Did you hear me? Prior to rezoning the site. Once the property is rezoned, the developer can say they followed all the ordinances, leaving the town of Delafield, LPSD, and the homeowners left to deal with the costly ongoing issues for years to come. I think that's pretty significant. Just like you guys.
Hold on.
Well, no. Just like you said to me that you were going to use the 10,000 square foot lot minimally. And if you look at it, it's, what did I quote? It's the majority of the property is 10,000 square foot. But you told me you were going to just use small amounts. So, I mean, that's where the trust thing.
But do you understand, though, that, people have said the planning commission didn't do their job. The planning commission just rubber stamped this thing. The planning commission was very, thoughtful in that allowing the 10,000 square foot lot minimum. Because if we required 20,000 square foot lots, they would have put more condo units and less single-family homes. And the Plan Commission wanted to incentivize and have more single-family units and less condo units. So in order to do that, they decided that they were going to allow 10,000 square foot lots in order to drive the desire to have more single-family homes. So that was the thought process.
And I wasn't on there, and I wasn't elected then, and I totally
You've wanted to vote
disagree.
no for this thing since day one. So,
I'm not voting no for this thing.
It's the
Hold on, Joe.
The piece on these 10,000 square foot lots as well, right? When Dan, there are plenty of 10,000 square foot lots in the town already. Dan and I went through and counted out of this proposal the approximate number of of lots that were actually under 11,000 square feet. And it was about a third of the ones that have the ability to be at 10,000 square feet. About a third of them were between 10,000 and 11,000 square feet. So when you talk about the other 2/3 of the lots that are allowed to be 10,000 square feet, a little bit more than half of them are at around, or at over 11,000 square feet. So again, when you go back to, I can't help but take the connotation of how people are reacting to 10,000 square foot lots as the fact that, like, we don't want those people. There's already people with 10,000 square foot lots living in the town of Delafield, right? Like, it's.
I mean, it's actually not the quality. It's
When you,
it's how
hold
the
on
house looks.
1 second also. Every single one of these 10,000 square foot lots also backs up to green space, not another lot, right? So what would you prefer? We could shave 10% off of the open space and make all of these 15,000 square foot lots, or pretty darn close, and it would look exactly the same, and now we're all at 15,000 square foot lots and 10% less open space.
But the neighbors
But-
aren't,
but
neighbors
hold
don't
on.
have 15,000 square foot lots.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just commentary, because we've, again, just setting the emotion aside a minute of 10,000 square foot versus 12 versus 15, and I realize that those are different sizes and they're distinctly different potential home sizes as well. We've been doing this a long time, and the buyers, the people that ultimately live in these homes and become your neighbors, prefer open space versus mowing. And to the point that was just made, we could very easily, with the layout that is right here, right now, with the same density, we could have lots that are 20% larger and have a minimum of 12,000. Like, if we want to have a good, active, I got applause. You didn't get applause yet. That's pretty good. That's only one clap. Maybe I can just second. Seriously, if like, these are the sorts of active dialogue things, you guys, that are productive and healthy, and we can, like, if you said, hey, Newman Developments, the 213 isn't really the issue, or 212, I'm sorry, I didn't try to add one. 212 lots is not necessarily the problem. We know you actually could do more than that under the existing zoning, so actually we're grateful that you reduced that. You're not going to say that, but we're happy that you reduced the density from what could be 250 or 260 down to 212. That's great. But we really would prefer you don't have any 10,000 square foot lots. We just feel like in the town of Delafield, that's too small. Do you think you could come back to us with a plan that was 12,000 minimum square feet? Brian and I would look at each other and we go, well, it stinks because this design's pretty good and we know that's what the buyers like. But that's probably something we could do. And you know what we'd do? We'd add 20 feet in the back of all these lots. And these lots would all of a sudden, instead of being 130 feet deep or whatever they are, they go to 150 feet deep. And then the open space would shrink. But here's what else would happen. We talk about infiltration of groundwater. Actually, most of Tom Kep's letter that came in at 10:30 this morning that we said we didn't have a lot of time to review, but fortunately, and to Tom's credit, he kept it to like 3 pages, so it wasn't too painful to read, so thank you, Tom. But the reality is, a lot of this, the groundwater recharge, the wells that everyone's concerned about, and the lake water that everyone's concerned about, we're in lake country, like we get it. You need to have green space. Part of the reason that we did what we did in Lake Country Village and have smaller home sites, I'm not going to refer to them as what some other people do because I actually am proud of what we did there, and I think our residents that live there are very proud of their $500,000 and $600,000 and $700,000 homes, and I don't look down on those. I actually am proud of those. And there's a lot of grandparents in this community that are thrilled that their kids get to live here in those homes. But regardless of that, that's for infiltration, you guys. When you have smaller home sites where people can't do things on the open spaces, it allows us to put in stormwater facilities that manage the stormwater of the site. One of Tom's, I want to just address these briefly because a lot of these are no big deal, and we actually agree with what Mr. Kep wrote in his report. He said, I don't want people connecting their sump pumps to the sewer system. We agree. That actually is illegal to do. But we agree with him because we want to recharge the groundwater. That's what you're supposed to do. When your sump pump pumps water out from around your foundation, it comes up, goes out the side, goes into the stormwater system. We completely agree. That's actually his point number 1 and point number 4 is to make sure that we adhere to a grading plan and that the LPSD has some influence in the grading plan to make sure that we keep our stormwater on site and allow it to infiltrate. These are all good things. The second item on here, just briefly, is about the wells. We don't know how deep the well is going to be on lot 15 versus lot 72 versus lot 91. It all depends on what they find when they drill. It's the same way when you guys built your home, or if you didn't build your home, whoever drilled the well in your lot, they don't know when they start drilling whether they're going to reach the capacity at 90 feet. It's probably not going to be less than that in this area, but probably 100 plus feet, or whether they're going to get it at 400 feet. They don't know that. And the crazy thing is, it could be different on the southwest corner of the site, 4 lots apart, all in the southwest corner of the site. That's the way the groundwater works. It's not predictable. So we could study this till we're blue in the face, but you don't necessarily know until you go and actually plug a well in the ground what depth it's going to be.
May I make a comment?
Just, if you
Yeah,
don't
sure.
mind,
Whatever.
the last one is monitoring wells related to the wetlands, number 3 on here. And we actually, I don't believe we can even insert, I don't want to put Jason Fruth on the spot, but he's senior. I don't even think we can do that because we can't disturb wetlands. But we can make sure that we're recharging those wetlands with stormwater. And that's what our stormwater system will do. It's infiltrate and then make sure that we're recharging wetlands with clean water. So sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for, because could we go to a minimum 12,000 square feet? Yeah, I'll tell you right now, we could do that, and we could keep 213, or I keep saying that because there's a house in the corner, 212 home sites. We could do that. And if that were going to make all of you happy, we would cheer, we'd walk out the door, come back a month from now and go, great, minimum is 12,000. But that's not, we know that's not really the whole thing here. But the point is that it does have compromises. There are things that you offset when you do it. So we do what we do for a reason. We're here to have an active dialogue. If you want us to make the lots a little bigger, we can add some depth to these lots and not really change the layout a lot. Well,
Well, and what's so magical about 12? I mean, what about, I mean, you got everybody else around you is an acre, half
Kind of
acre
the
at least. I
problem.
mean, so
That
12,
is-
I mean, 12 is too little still. I mean, you know, we should, minimum 20 is, I feel like, would be like.
So
what-
we could do that. You'd have no green space. You'd have 255 home sites on here, I think, is what whatever I know we did a density plan a while ago to say, what would this be under R3? I think it's R3 zoning. There's so many zonings on this, I can't even remember. But under R3 zoning, I believe if we just put a grid pattern of 20,000 square foot lots on here, I think it'd be 250 or 260. I don't know, Tim, if you remember what it is, but it's a lot. And then there'd be no green space. 240, I'm sorry.
Yeah, 239.
Yeah, but it would be a grid pattern, which I promise you none of you would like because this is a rectangular property. So like string, I could design it right here on the spot. It's going to have like 2 roads, east and west, and it's going to have rectangular shape 20,000 square foot lots, and there's gonna be no green space, and there's not gonna be any trees left.
Well, it doesn't have to. You could be
So-
creative and go like this. I
But
mean,
you can't, because then you can't get 239 home
well, who
sites.
says that? That's your prerogative. I don't feel like you're entitled to get that, okay? I mean, you've got an offer on it, and I understand you have to make money, but you're not entitled to do that. If everybody else in the town overall, I mean, all these subdivisions, and again, Steve, when you said you live in a little house, yes, I mean, it's the lake properties, there's a lot of other non-conforming, there's other smaller lots, but our newer subdivisions don't look like that. Even our old ones don't look like that. So why now? I'm not, that's all my point is too.
Well, but Supervisor Ogden, I mean, I hadn't heard that because I've never spoken to new developers, but that was my thought on it, is that we get fewer units with the plan that's in front of us than other plans, including the R3 zoning. One of the big objections I've heard is that we created a district specific to this land that is different than the rest of the zoning code. I hear that, and I've thought a lot about that. And R3 zoning doesn't allow us to protect a lot of the things that are on here, including, most important to me, is the tree lines. The tree line protections that get preserved in the pattern here, I think are really good for the long-term development of this area. I've seen a lot of farm fields, as I've also lived in this area my whole life, go from farm field to neighborhood. The ones that look the best are the ones that have mature trees down the line. And by getting a jump on that, by preserving the tree lines, I think we have a shot to have it look a lot better. So the pattern of it is designed around the tree lines, and I think that's valuable. If you disagree, let me know. I mean, if you'd rather have grid with 20,000, then it's an R3 zoning. Then the work under the district is meaningless. And then we don't, I mean, R3 zoning in a normal process in the town does not include studies. It does not include requirements for trails. It does not include a lot of the information that we have in front of us here. So that's a different process if that's the route
And if
that
that's the
you wanted to
process
go.
that Newman should take, then maybe that's what we should do.
When this was voted on last year for the PDD to do this, right? The only reason that I voted on this is because the PDD provided for fewer units than if they just turned it to R3. Not only did it provide for fewer units, it also required the traffic, sewer, and water study, which had we not done, then exactly as Supervisor Stevens just said, Michaels, there would be no need, there would be no requirement for them to do that. So by approving this overlay, right, we got fewer units, we got the obligation of testing, preservation of green space, and we traded for some smaller lots. And that was the deal when we did it, right? And that's where we're at. And now they've come down even more, right? It was at 230, now it's 212. So that's where.
But why are we settling again? Why aren't we having it be like what's on the other side? That's what the neighbors want. That's what the townspeople want. They want it to look like what's near them.
Because I don't
And
own
yes,
the
you won't
property.
make as much money.
So
We
what does
get
the
that.
property owner want? Because they do have a say in this.
I mean, the property owner has to make an application for changing the land use, and then subsequently they have to make an application for changing the zoning. So we got them, let's all recall, to change it from light industrial and corporate uses. And so that's a big win. Now we're talking residential. And so the conversation has moved quite a bit, right? We used to be talking about pollution in corporate buildings and debating that. Now we're debating the size of lots. We're in a better spot. We're having a better discussion in this body. So the landowner is the one that has to make the application to change it to the zoning. We don't have the power to compel them to do it. I appreciate your comments, and you've been consistent in your opinion about it, Supervisor Ogden. What I really want to know, though, is, I mean, Mr. Newman himself just said, if you want to have a productive dialogue, we'll have it with you. I'm wondering, are you interested in dialogue around this plan moving forward, or is it always a no for you?
I wouldn't say it's always a no for me, but this plan is a no.
I agree.
The-
Yeah, I agree with your statement.
And what specific items would
I
be
mean,
addressed?
are there
I
things
talked
within
about-
this that you want to change or adjust, or, because I'm hearing, I guess, a lot of blanket no, and then to the idea of it, and I won't put words in your mouth, but I want to understand where we're at as a body here. No to this plan, and also discomfort with the studies and requiring more of that. Is that,
Yep, that's a good summary
that's
of
where
what,
you,
yep.
okay.
And those, I said more things than that, but yes, those.
Yeah, I
I agree
won't.
with what you said, yes.
I won't try and put words in your mouth. I apologize. I personally, do not have discomfort with this plan based off the Lake Pewaukee Sewer District letter. A letter at 10:30 on January 23rd does not move my opinion after all the studies I've read. They did the Collier study in February of 2023. Why I received a letter today is beyond me. Further, they recommended no basements, which is incredibly bold, considering that there's basements everywhere else in the town. So I don't quite understand where that's coming from. So I will just say, we're trying to get a count of where we're at. I don't give pause to this based off of what LPSD said. So that's where I stand on that issue.
But we can agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, no, I just want to.
I'm just,
I mean, I don't think we're in a position to move this forward tonight. We don't. I said earlier, we have two choices. We can just say no, or we can table it and talk to Newman about what's next.
What
you know.
would you expect Newman to say?
Well,
What's
we
next if
talked
you've
about,
got
we have a dialogue.
table?
We have a dialogue about what the options are. And you actually, and I was worried about the well too. I mean, are you good with going down below the McKinley Shale, or you just don't agree? You don't agree with that? And that's where I guess I'm like, you've got two different studies. I know that's another whole thing, but I'm just trying to I don't think we have enough information to move this forward tonight. I don't feel comfortable with this whatsoever.
I don't either.
You
I
can
don't
make, you can make a short comment, and then we gotta,
Yeah, just, the GZA report is what we would follow. So whether it means a shallow well or deep well is site-by-site specific. It's not development-wide. So no, we would not represent that every single well in this site is going to be a deep well below the whatever M shale depth would be.
And isn't that a direct conflict?
Because they could easily meet the flow at 100 feet. We don't know that.
But isn't that a conflict with what Colliers was saying? Because doesn't that all ultimately affect, stormwater too? I mean, that's how I saw that. I saw the two things, that there wasn't consistency.
Yeah,
And I
our
would
study
just
was
like
fully
all of you
vetted by
engineers.
Waukesha County, by Sewer Pack. LPSD had a chance to review it. The fact that there's some other study out there, I don't know, but GZA is a study that was fully vetted by everyone that was involved and had plenty of time to be reviewed. At the end of the day, the point is, you could table this tonight if you'd like, or obviously you could turn it down, or you could vote yes. There are three options, not two, but I know you don't want to talk about the third one. So there are three options. But if you table it, what we need as a developer is to understand, we've had a lot asked of us, and we understood that when we signed up for this. That was, these are all the studies that you're going to need to do if you want to pursue this development. We knew that was a tall order. We did them. If there's other information you'd like from us, let us know. What we submitted here tonight, as was pointed out by staff, meets the requests and meets the requirements of this zoning district. So if there's something that we need to provide that you feel doesn't meet it, let us know. If it's just throw it out and start over, I don't really know what to do, because what we submitted meets all of the requirements in the plan and meets the zoning district. So I don't really know where else to go from here unless we have very clear guidance. Like I said, if you want us to add a little bit of space on these lots, a little square footage in the lots, take away from open space, probably could do something like that. But if it's throw it out and start over, I don't really know what to do, because we followed the guidance that was here, so.
So I get to go from 48 acres of Brookstone and to 500.
Mr. Chairman.
point of order.
Point of order.
Point of order, enough.
I motion we table. I think we've heard a lot today, and I think we table this vote. I can be more specific if you'd like. I could say I motion that we table table the adoption of ordinance 2024.01 to amend the zoning map of the town of Delafield from A1 Ag to PDD. Not what the original motion is, I just don't think we have enough information. And
Fails due to
we have
lack of a
new,
second.
we have new leaders.
I would motion to approve.
So we have multiple motions.
Motion to
The
approve.
motion failed due to lack of a second. So now,
Oh,
Nobody seconded.
I recommend the motion,
okay.
petition for zoning amendments and the general development plan be approved by the town board. Based on the following, the request is in compliance with the town land use plan. The application is complete and all information required by section 17.045R4B has been submitted for review. Findings indicate that each of the GDP required submittal materials identified in the PDD ordinance has been adequately addressed. The proposed development meets the PDD statement of intent. The general development plan layout has been reviewed in light of the regulations with each subsection of 17045R and have been found in compliance with the ordinance, subject to a detailed review when subdivision plats and construction plans are submitted for review and approval in accordance with normal town review process. Development of the subject property shall be in substantial conformance with the maps and studies identified in the GDP as follows. And I'll submit the map number by Town Engineer Barbeau into the motion.
Second?
And now we can discuss again. So I feel that we are really letting down our people. We've had Newman even offer that they don't know what to do, but they'd be willing to go back and look at it. And so why would we just?
I feel like you want to move forward on this by default.
we have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt the ordinance to amend the zoning map.
Well, then oftentimes
Now
when we have
discussion.
second motions, we have discussion. So that's what we're doing.
Are you the town chair?
It could be, if you want me to be today. I mean, I just know a lot of people helped you to become town chair and you are not representing them.
I disagree. Let's have a discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I mean Supervisor Agden, I asked if there's specific things within here that you wanted to, and you said you were opposed to this plan in its whole. So that was the basis of my moving forward with a motion.
No, well, no, but you asked me, was I willing to discuss it? And I said, of course, and that's why it's nice we can discuss it now. And we've had our developer say, give us some suggestions, so let's take that opportunity. Let's take that opportunity to work with what else we could do. I never have met with you. I've never talked with you guys about this, except for the fact that I vehemently said the town of Delafield doesn't have 10,000 square foot lots in our new subdivisions. And then you said to me, oh, we're just going to use them minimally. And yet 174 of 213 lots are.
We've had that. You guys had that exchange.
Been going on for
right?
5 years.
So I just think
asked for
we need to
asked
table
for
it
the
and figure it out.
tests. They got us the tests. They got us the results. They passed. We asked for 230 units. That passed a year ago. They've reduced it to 212 units.
There are still concerns about the studies and no full solutions have been
Professional
identified.
studies, what concerns specifically on a professional study are you raising?
I'm looking at
Like,
what LPSD says here.
I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm not a water expert. I'm not a sewer expert. When someone gives me a plan that says this is prepared by a traffic expert or a water expert or a sewer expert, I trust their opinion because that's what they do for a living. So what else are we going to get? Right? We've done the traffic, we've done the water, we've done the sewer. They've reduced it by 20-ish units of what we originally asked for.
I want to have a signed agreement with LPSD and the developer and guarantees and bonds before.
No, I think this is a zoning position,
this is
Supervisor Ogden.
Yeah, this
I mean, the steps of it go that this is a zoning position.
But we're doing it backwards.
But there'll be a developer agreement at some point that will conclude those
And
bonds.
I feel like we'll lose control.
Well, but we're not doing it backwards. In fact, well, I guess we are doing it backwards, but
Yeah.
because we're
Yes.
forwarding all of the studies. Like, we've done it backwards in our favor, that we moved all of the review and the studies up to the front so we could see them. I mean, a zoning petition is always approved prior to a developer's agreement. So there's nothing backwards about that within the process.
I think we have some unique surroundings with the lake. And I think that in itself requires, I mean, we have one chance. If we screw up, you guys, we've screwed up. And I just feel like what we are doing here,
So the developments that are closer to the lake, that had not gone through any of these testings, right? Gulf Hills, High Ridge, Crooked Creek, any of the other things, like they did it and they are fine, right? Or what? Like we've done the studies. These are further away. The studies have specifically said no impact to the lake.
then
Can
why
I
are
ask you
we getting
another
this
real
letter
quick water
today
question?
telling us?
Is which is better for runoff, farmland or residential green space? Residential green space. Okay, so we're improving the condition of what the water is that hits the lake by not having a farm, right? Like, we have done the studies.
Yeah, okay, that's not the argument. We're going to have a subdivision.
Well,
Yes,
what
we
is
know
the
that.
argument then? You don't like
Argument
the
is
studies.
because we don't want the density in the little lots.
Hold on,
That's
you
what-
almost said it. You don't want
You don't want
these
the density of
little
little
lots.
The lots, yeah, that's what I just told
I-
them, 10,000
I don't-
square foot lots.
Right, but I.
They
but
have
I
the
think-
density shoved in 10,000 square foot lots is not what the town of Delafield is. We are not what you did in Pat's Farms. We aren't. We're not the Harbor Homes. We aren't.
I understand how comfortable you feel right now about all this. You're
I don't-
literally
I-
about
I-
to
I
give the
think
green light to this.
You're literally what?
You're literally about to give the green light to this.
Magley, I've already expressed this is not my
I don't know why you
preference
change
of
your
what-
mind like
I've
that.
changed my mind, nothing. When we started this, again, we'll go through the timeline. When we started this process, we were talking about 850 to 900 units. It has come down to 212. It has come,
I'm not tired. I started this journey
great.
2
I'm
years
not
ago.
tired
I'm not
either.
tired. I will continue to discuss this as long as it takes.
I'm not tired. I am looking to stand behind what we had presented, what
Why
we
are you-
voted
why
on
are
and
you
was
now in a
approved.
rush, though?
What's that?
Why are
I'm
you
not
all
in a
of sudden
rush.
rush?
Yes, we're rushing this, truly.
Then let's table it.
Absolutely we are.
Let's table it to make absolutely sure we know what we're doing. And give them a chance, give Newman a chance to come back with maybe a variation of what we're
Supervisor
looking
Ogden,
at.
you asked a question, why not table it? I don't believe that there is any level of study perhaps that will satisfy you. I don't think that there is some, I don't think there is some magic piece of information or magic change to R3 zoning or the planned development district that will move you to supporting this.
Do you feel like you have a choice tonight, Supervisor Michaels? Do you feel you have a choice tonight?
Yeah, of course, why?
All I'm asking them is to be a little more creative.
You haven't asked them anything.
Oh, I did, or, I mean, I
You
did.
told them you were opposed to it.
No, I'm opposed to this particular development. I would like you guys to be a little more creative. So, let's have a conversation. You
We've
said
been
you-
having a conversation for over 5 years now, and.
It doesn't matter, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. We're here to represent our residents.
Why-
They are here to voice their opinions. I'm one of the voices, and I will say exactly
why it
the message I
matters-
need to share.
Why it matters is because when we passed this overlay and asked people to spend money, we made a commitment to a number, and essentially, we're, okay, you need to do this to, and if the studies come in and this can support it, then this is what moves forward, right? This is where it's not a change in mind, it's not a snap decision. This has been on the table, this has been what was presented from the day we took the vote on the PUD plan. And with the pending results of the tests that were done, the tests were done and they have passed.
The marketability level of this property should not matter in our choices.
Where did marketability of
Period.
this
Well, that's
property?
what you said. You
Well,
guys
but
said
we
that.
want a single-family neighborhood.
Yeah, I
on
mean,
this plan. I mean, and that's what's in front of us, though.
At the end,
I mean,
at the end of the day,
it has less units than our zoning code allows,
yeah, at
guys.
the end of the day, this
It has-
this has been compromised. This has been compromised on behalf of the town. This has been compromised on top of the property owners. This has been compromised on behalf of the neighbors. And people, you say, represent the people that elected you. I've heard from a lot of people from the south side and the north side that think this is a great plan, short of the people in this room. So
I haven't heard once. I haven't heard it once since I took office. Not even one time.
I concur
I would
with
tell
that.
you if that was the case.
Matter of fact, the people who aren't here are the ones that are going to later, if this happens, are going to go, oh my gosh, why did you guys do that? That's what they're going to say, because most of those people, they're not here because they're just not as interested. And then they'll see it and they'll be like, oh my goodness. So, I do feel like your concern is fear. And Joe, I said this, I feel
My
like,
concern is not fear. I've been very clear on this since I took a vote for it a year ago.
Eric, can you explain to us what I think Joe is concerned about with the voting out of fear?
I don't think anybody's voting out
I'm
of
not
fear.
voting on fear.
You want me to?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to.
That's not a real question.
I'm not sure I understand
voting
the
on
question.
anger.
I think Joe's concerned that we've made this plan and, we're going to get sued.
May I speak for myself?
He looked at me, so I answered him.
Well, on my behalf, apparently?
Well, he looked at me. He asked me a question. He looked at me, so I answered him.
You think somebody is concerned that we're going to get sued? Is that?
That's what Joe said.
I think it's very possible we'll get sued no matter what happens.
There's a motion and a second on the table to adopt the ordinance. I'd ask for a roll call vote.
Supervisor Supervisor Mahoney Ogden. Supervisor Mahoney Ogden.
Are you going to vote?
I am motioning to table this vote.
He called a vote.
There's a vote.
We're voting at this point.
Supervisor Mahoney Ogden.
Question was called and we're voting, so I think.
But I had a motion earlier.
Raise the motion first.
Right.
I believe the motion was raised, and I believe it failed due to lack of second.
Yes.
No, I don't think that's the case.
No one seconded it.
There was no second.
Did you ask for a second?
He never acknowledged it. That's true.
Usually, Ed, you ask for a second when we have votes.
Mr. Chairman, there was a motion made to table this. There was no second, and you ruled it at the time that it failed for a lack of a second. Then there was a motion to adopt the ordinance. That was seconded, and you called the question a moment ago, and we're in the process of voting at this time.
Supervisor Mahoney Ogden.
He's asking you for your vote.
Yay or nay, or abstain.
I am motioning to table this decision. I'm not going along with you, Mr. Larson, because what you're saying doesn't even make sense.
A second.
Every single time
Miller,
Ed
a
asks
second.
for a second, every time he asks for a second, every time.
Supervisor Miller.
That was not asked tonight.
Supervisor Miller, you're being asked to vote.
And I motion to table.
A second.
Supervisor Wolfley.
What was your response? I'm sorry.
We're asking, you're being asked
I
to
know,
vote.
but
A second
Aye.
the motion made by Terry Mahoney-Ogden to table.
Mr. Chairman, that motion's out of order. We're in the process of voting.
Yeah, we're in the voting on the motion that's on the table. So.
The Robert rules will not followed 100%. I'm also part of this board.
Supervisor Wolfley.
Aye.
Supervisor Michaels.
Aye.
Chairman Krennic.
Aye.
Motion
I'm going to
passes.
call the initial names. They didn't actually vote.
Supervisor Mahoney Ogden.
I am voting no, and I am in complete disagreement in the order that this is happening. very, very disappointed in the spirit of this vote. Very disappointed. This isn't at all representing the spirit of our town. I don't know what your hurry is.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
These men towards the women is appalling.
I vote no.
Motion passes 3-2.
Mr. Chairman.
The ordinance is adopted 3-2. Next item on the agenda, recommendation to Waukesha County on the request to rezone lands A1 to R3, residential and planned unit development conditional use permit for lands that are under Waukesha County zoning jurisdiction. We still have business on the agenda. If you want to
That's fine.
commiserate, go in the hallway, please.
Mr. Chairman, are you calling for a motion on the next item?
Yeah, I'm calling the next item the Waukesha County request for rezone.
I would motion to approve the rezone to rezone the county lands from A1 to R3, and that the residential planned unit development be approved, subject to the entire development following the conditions and requirements of the town's PPD ordinance. The recommendation is based on the following. The request is in compliance with the county land use plan. The general development plan layout has been reviewed in light of the regulations within each subsection of Section 17045R Planned Development District and has been found in compliance with the ordinance. Development of the subject property will be in substantial conformance with the maps and studies identified in the general development plan as follows. And I incorporate the maps listed from Town Engineer Barbeau.
Second.
The motion is second on the recommendation of Waukesha County. Roll call, Supervisor, Mr. Green?
Supervisor Mahoney-Ogden?
No.
Supervisor Miller?
No.
Supervisor Wolfley?
Aye.
Supervisor Michaels?
Aye.
Chairman Kranek?
Aye. The motion passes 3-2 for the recommendation of Waukesha County. Next item, discussion and possible action on the purchase of international plow truck chassis with outfitted hydraulic systems, dump spreader with dual augers, install a plow, additional equipment by Casper's Truck and Equipment.
How do I follow that up?
Dan?
Before you are on the agenda is an ask for a purchase of an international plow truck. This truck was ordered the same time as the other truck that we still haven't taken delivery on. We're hoping to get it this week. This was discussed when we made the purchase of the loader. The initial thought was that this international chassis wasn't going to come in until June or July, and it's currently in Texas and on its way up. So it came a little sooner, so unfortunately that decision has to be made a little sooner than I would have liked, but here we are. Just a little background on this. We had a pretty bad storm last week, as you heard from the fire department, and we had some truck issues. Yeah. We had some truck issues. We had a truck that broke both of its axles. We're hoping that the truck that should be completed is back this week to help mitigate that issue. But the fact is the next replacement is an 01. The axles broke on the 01. The storm we had was rough on our equipment.
How did, equipment-wise, how did we hold up? I mean, I can't remember 7 days as bad as that. What did you feel like we had from a standpoint of equipment?
Well, we were able to deal with the storm. The axles broke later on in the storm, luckily, and we did have the loaders with the plow. The new loader was already set up, so that was able to help quite a bit. But since then, we've also had our 2011, I believe, Peterbilt that has some issues that they're going to have to take back into the shop. Luckily, after today and tomorrow, we're going to have a little break in weather, so we can kind of work to fix those. The axles on the 01, they don't make them anymore. They're Sterlings, and Sterlings were bought out twice already. So they're trying to find a essentially a different frame, I guess you'd say, to replace. So we're confident we can get that resolved, but not probably anytime in the next couple weeks. And this truck isn't something that's going to be purchased and then ready to go on day 3. It's going to go through the same 4-month process of getting the bed put in, getting it outfitted with plows and hydraulics for the plow and that sort of thing. So what it would essentially come down to is using the remainder of our ARPA funds and some of our reserves, and we had spoken about that at the last meeting, at what the impact that was. Roughly, it'd be a $100,000 hit to our reserve funds. We have them. I mean, we've built them up over the past 4 years. So right now we're sitting at 1.6. It may, at the end of the year, be a wash because we've been under budget over the past 4 years.
We have to make the decision to allocate today?
I would ask at least to allocate for the chassis because otherwise we'll miss out on the opportunity, considering I would have liked to put this off until February, but given the urgency and how quick they produce the chassis. We don't have to necessarily approve Casper's outfitting of the truck right now. We can look at that later, but it would be nice to get our hands on the chassis and go from there.
The quote from Casper's is from mid-June 23. Is that still valid?
The 122?
Yeah, Casper's truck equipment date 6/13/23. I just...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's still valid because we actually have a plow for it. They'd be putting it on for us. It's a different kind of plow than what we typically use with the plow and wing. It's one that you would typically see in front of our loaders. So it has a little bit more range, better for cul-de-sacs and things like that. But again, right now, if we're just looking to get our hands on the chassis, we can do that. And then I can come back with Casper equipment later. They are looking for a down payment right now. Casper is by January 31st, but if we don't, we can always go back to them. I just don't know if I can guarantee that price in, May.
All right, so what motion would you be looking?
I think we're looking for a motion to at least secure the chassis, because we don't want to lose our spot of the chassis, especially given some of the truck issues we had with the latest storm. We have the reserves. We're going to be in good financial health to be able to do that.
And what % of our reserves will we be going into?
Good question.
Whatever 100,000 divided by 1.6 is, so I can do the math real quick.
6% or something?
Uh, 6.25.
Okay.
0.25.
Move to decimal.
And again, we may not be going into reserves depending on if we are under budget this year. So there may be cost savings in the road projects if asphalt comes back at a lower price, or just some other points of the budget don't hit where we expect. So
In my time here, the reserves have gone up each year. I don't like the idea of them coming down, but the ARPA funds, I think as we discussed at our last meeting, the ARPA funds have an expiration date on them, and so it makes sense for us to use them, and it doesn't make sense to sit on them. So I wouldn't be opposed to this, but I'm open to hearing from others what your opinion is, because it is a big decision.
And then we're done, right?
we're done till 2028.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and
that's a
that's, I mean,
nice
I see that as a
3 or 4 year gap.
I see that as being wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with the value of trucks and the increasing value of them. I think securing it and moving the dollars to get it done is important. So I'd motion to purchase the International Plow Truck chassis with outfitted hydraulic system, dump spreader, dual augers, install of plow and additional equipment by Casper's Truck Equipment.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the purchase of the International Plow Truck. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion passes 5-0. Next item is discussion and possible action on the adoption of an ordinance to create and establish a municipal court to reflect the inclusion of the city of Delafield joining the Lake Country Municipal Court. All this is readopting the ordinance with the city of Delafield joining the Lake Country Municipal Court.
Readapting, right? Nothing's changed on it.
Yeah, Terry had a question in regards to, the city and kind of what this means for the town and the court itself.
I agree, we've had a bad experience
Well, and
here.
that was why, yeah, so my question that, yeah, I asked Dan ahead of time just to be prepared, is just being that the issues that we've had, are we opening up, again, are we going to be getting it as something that's just going to be, cause us, challenge and be difficult to work with them as our neighbor? And so, Dan, you can give me the response, but that was my question. I just want to make sure that this was
Yep,
a good
and that-
idea and how it came to be.
Yeah, the governance of the Lake Country Court is a lot different than the governance of LCFR. As a member community, you basically just get a bill. You don't have a lot of say. So I don't foresee having the same issues that we have with the fire department, with the court, with the city of Delafield joining.
Correct. Lake Country is unique in that, if one community doesn't want it, then no one gets it, and this doesn't work that way. So, and they typically meet once a year just to go over budget, salaries, that sort of thing, but nothing that I see being an issue with the city's joining.
And there was, I had the same thoughts, Terry, or Supervisor Ogden. I didn't notice any changes in these governing documents based off the city being added, right? They weren't able to, just, okay. They weren't able to change any of the processes or anything as part of their addition?
No.
Is there any pluses? I mean, I understand maybe there's no negative. Is there a plus, or is it just a?
Better funded.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
you get more ticket revenue, so it just makes the entity bigger in general.
And I'll say, I recommended to the city of Delafield that they join this. I said we've had nothing but positive experience from the board level with the municipal court. I think the city, for a long time, had the benefit of some local judges that were willing to run a court. They unfortunately passed away, and they were forced to make a choice. And so I recommend them they join this because it's worked so well for us. So hopefully the cost will spread out, and we won't get increases, and there'll be more the services available.
And it saves them money, which would hopefully give them more money to fund the fire department, so.
Motion to adopt the ordinance to create and establish a municipal court, reflect the inclusion of City of Delafield joining the Lake Country Municipal Court.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the ordinance to create and establish a municipal court to reflect the inclusion of the city of Delafield joining Lake Country Municipal Court. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Announcements and planning items. The next town board is Tuesday, February 13th at 6:30. Tuesday, town board, Tuesday, February 27th at 6:30. And the next plan commission is scheduled to be Tuesday, March 5th at 6:30. Next item would be a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.